As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Remember the Game. It is my goddamn retro gaming podcast, where every week a buddy of mine and I sit down and geek out about the games we played back in the day. My name is Adam Blank. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And this week it is episode 248, and it's one of our Stupid Sexy sponsored episodes, where a patron of the show has had enough of me playing other games and said, hey, fuck you, play this game instead. So I've played it, and now we're going to talk about it, and I think you get where this is going. And here's the thing. This week, we're talking about a fighting game, kinda. It's a wrestling game, sort of. It is, I really don't know what it is, but it's called Saturday Night Slam Masters. You might have played it in the arcade. Maybe you played it on your SNES, on the Genesis, in the Capcom Arcade Collection, which is where I played it. Or maybe you haven't played it at all. But if you haven't, you should, because it's actually pretty fun. And listen, here's the thing. Fighting games are fucking quantum chemistry or something smart to me. I respect them from a safe distance, but asking me to talk about them, that's a slippery slope because I just don't really understand them. You know, I've always admired high-level fighting game players. I actually quite enjoy watching high-level play of fighting games, but I've always been like embarrassingly historically bad at them. So for those of you asking me for episodes about Tekken, Soul Calibur, Marvel vs. Capcom, I've never played any of them. I don't know if that's ever going to happen because I'm like a fish out of water trying to drive a car when it comes to talking fighting games. But I did play Saturday Night Slam Masters. I played it quite a bit. And, well, I truly am embarrassingly bad at it. It was really fun. I want to talk about it, as does supporter/friend/tag team partner of the show, the one and only Big Deal, who sponsored this episode. He'll explain why he loves this game, why he's known as the Big Deal, and a whole bunch more this week. And then my resident fighting game guy, Mike the Ref, makes his triumphant return to the show to talk about the highs and the lows of traveling the world mastering slams on Saturday nights. That was a fucking silky smooth intro right there. And we'll get to all of it in just a minute, because speaking of silky smooth, it's time for another edition of the Remember the Game infamous intro. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome aboard and consider this your warning. Our intros are kind of long, but they're fun. And skipping them is a lot easier than beating Saturday Night Slam Masters. If you do want to skip it, you're just here for Slam Master talk, go about 30 minutes up the road. We'll get into the chat and all that. But I recommend giving the list, give the intro a chance. It's fun. We talk about video games and stuff. It's good times. I do have to get my plugs out of the way. I only do it once, but I got to do it now. It's how we keep the bills on. We have merchandise, hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, posters, all kinds of stuff, rocking incredible art designed by my man Joe from 4545creative.com. You can find our merchandise at rememberthegamepodcast.com. If you're interested, it's a great way to support the show. And of course, if you don't like clothes, I get it. Summer, you're wrestling, you're jacked, you're tanned, you want to be out there naked. I understand. You can always just support us on Patreon because subscriptions start at just $2 dues a month, and you get up to 4 additional shows every week. Every second Monday, you're going to get Purple Monkey Dishwasher, which is our new Simpsons podcast, hosted by both myself and the one and only Mark McHugh. Every Tuesday, I drop The Rambling Idiot, where I ramble about my comedy career, TV, movies, sports, whatever else I feel like talking about. Every Friday, it's Game Patch, which is my modern gaming news show, where I talk about the biggest stories in modern games, new releases, I give you sales picks, etc. And Expansion Pass goes live every Thursday. I think it's the crown jewel of the podcast library at Remember the Game. It's a different gaming show every week. We do rankings, we look back at characters, consoles, genres, everything else. We do some comedy episodes. There's a ton of modern game reviews. This past week on Expansion Pass, it was episode 161, and we talked about gaming's Mount Rushmore, but we did a Heroes version of Gaming Mount Rushmore a few years ago. I wanted to get I wanted to be naughty this week, as they say. I wanted to get bad. So we got into the great villains of all time, and we figured out which 4 baddies should be on the Mount Rushmore of gaming evilness. And as is becoming tradition, here is a sneak peek of last week's episode of Expansion Pass, the gaming villain, Mount Rushmore. I put a lot of comments in my notes this week. I can't promise I'm going to read all of them, but I'm going to try to get through them. I think this could be a fun discussion episode. And then again, not to mock any of you, but there's only 4 heads on Mount Rushmore. So if you wrote in with 5, I'm not giving you the cut. I'm not putting you in the show because intentionally or unintentionally you cheated. If I have to whittle my list down to 4, so do you. All right? And you really did fuck with me and made me think that there was actually 5 heads on Mount Rushmore. And I was like, maybe they put fucking Barack on the side or something. But no, there's only 4. So anyways, let's kick this thing off. We're going to get the obvious one out of the way. Everybody knows who the first villain on my Mount Rushmore is. He was probably the name that came up the most. Anyone that, some of you wrote in with a list of 1 person that you thought should have been on the mountain. Some of you wrote in with your list of 4. Not everybody that wrote in with a list of 4 had this guy on their list, but a vast majority did, and I think he has to be on there. It's Bowser, all right? I'm not even going to spend a ton of time explaining this one. That's now available on our archives, and this week it's Expansion Pass 162, and as Uncle Ben once told Peter Parker, what's the point of great power if you don't abuse it? I think that's what he said. Anyway, I think we can all agree at this point that somehow over the last almost 5 years of this podcast, I have willed several video games into existence. I don't know how it happens, but we all know I seem to be able to do it. So this week, I'm going to put my powers to the test and count down a few games I really do want to will into reality. And of course, I'll tackle a few of yours as well. So again, subscriptions start at $2 a month. You get new episodes every week, plus instant access to hundreds of ad-free archive bonus podcasts you can download right onto your phone, plus access to our Remember the Game Discord, the chance to vote in our Patreon poll every month, the ability to submit comments to be read on all of our shows. You can DM with me, and I actually check those DMs a lot, so that's cool. And you get a shout-out and get to hear me mispronounce your name like I'm about to do to most of these people. A huge thank you to all of our newest Patriots. There's a few this week. Logan Frazier, Dr. Pullfinger, Jesse Bennett, Joseph Roselli, Sean Tate, Davey Milley, Steven, Phoenix Wrong, Jeffrey Porter, Rockstar in Job Only, I got it, Lachlan Trollope, It's the Kid, Tyler Potts, Gary from the Vault, Dr. Flapjacks, I don't think you're a real doctor, Coxie, or as the ladies call me, hey you behind the bushes, nice pull, Booker DeWitt, Mike O'Connor, Stephen McGee, Mr. Jabroni, Annex, Crystal Ball, Justin Story, IC Wiener, which I can only hear in Fry's voice from Futurama, Carmen Sider, Steven Schulten, Steve S., Phil Tamling, Amanda Hugginkiss, Big Daddy Randall, Adam Wanks, I do indeed, Kai O, and CO1312A, which I just realized kind of looks like the word Cobra, but with numbers instead of a B and an R. Well done. Thank you all so much for the support, and welcome to Remember the Game Industries, patreon.com/Remember the Game. And don't forget, 5% of our Patreon gets donated to the Stollery Children's Hospital at the end of the year as part of my 24-hour stream. And we offer annual subs. That'll save you your 12th month's fees if you pay for the year up front. Bada bing, bada boom, swish. And you can find me on Twitch. I've been quite active over there lately. I'm playing through Gears of War to get ready for episode 250 of the show. Twitch.tv/Remember the Game. I never beg you for subs or anything. Just come by, follow. It'll tell you when I'm online. It's free. You can tell me why I'm wrong, and it's good times. All right. That's enough blowing myself. Let's blow in some of you by blowing in some cartridges. It is our opening segment here on the show. I read a few comments and questions from our Patreons, usually gaming related, but not always, and we call this segment Blowing in the Cartridge.
He blows all right. He blows big time.
That's it, honey. Get into the spirit.
Let's blow. Our first blower this week is Dr. Link, who I don't think is actually a fucking doctor at all. They're giving everyone like Dr. Mario, Dr. Luigi, Dr. Wario. Everyone's getting doctor games these days. Anyways, Dr. Link says, hey, Adam, I know you think games journalist Jason Schreier is kind of a dingleberry, but I also know you like to read. So have you read any of his books? They tell some great stories about indie game development, including your beloved Shovel Knight, as well as some wild tales of industry excess. Dingleberry or not, the guy is a good writer. P.S. I am not Jason Schreier. I was about to accuse you too. Yeah, okay, so just so I set the record clear, in case you're wondering why I don't like Jason Schreier, I will never, ever sit here, and I defy anybody to ever find a clip where I said I don't think he's a good writer. And I'm not saying you said I did, Dr. Link. Jason Schreier is a fantastic writer. I just think he's pompous. I think he's rude. I think he's kind of full of his own shit. And I think he blocks everyone that criticizes him in any capacity. And which, I don't know. I don't have a lot of respect for. So I mean, I like the man, but what's the quote from Anchorman? I may not like you, Ron Burgundy, but god damn it, do I respect you. It's kind of where I fall with Jason Schreier. As far as his books go, and in case you're wondering who the fuck is Jason Schreier, who did he used to write for Kotaku? He might be one of the reasons I can't stand Kotaku. I think that's where he used to write. Now he works for Bloomberg, and he is easily one of the most connected men in gaming. News sources in gaming, as it were. The one book of his I have read is Blood, Sweat, and Pixels, and it was very, very good. Dude can write, man. I wish he wasn't such a knob, but dude can write, no question about it. Manuel Garcia said, I'm not sure if I'm late to the party, but what are your thoughts on the new Twisted Metal series? As one of my favorite games growing up, I'm excited, but still nervous they're going to fuck it up. I feel exactly what you just said, Manuel. If you don't know, I am a pretty big fan of the old Twisted Metal games. Twisted Metal Black has been on the we need to cover that game soon list for Remember the Game for about 244 of the 248 episodes that we've done. I fucking love Twisted Metal. I am very cautious about this show. I have seen the trailer. The reason I haven't reacted to it is because there's no meat on that bone. You had to see the dude from Avengers driving around, listen to Len, I think is who that sings Steal My Sunshine. And then Sweet Tooth is helping himself to an ice cream bar. And that's the end of it. So I want to see more of this show and see what it actually is going to be before I get excited or disappointed. But I am setting myself up to be disappointed. And hopefully, you know, if you set yourself up to be disappointed, maybe it exceeds your expectations. That's what you should be doing with my podcast. That's what I'm doing with Twisted Metal. So I'm going to watch it. Make no mistake, or at least watch the first episode. I'm going to give it a chance. But I am not expecting The Last of Us. It's not Twisted Metal doesn't have a great story. I mean, well, I guess it kind of has a neat story, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm setting the bar low. We'll see what happens. Spiro the Hero wrote in and said, hey, Adam, hope you're doing well. I'm doing all right. Smash Brothers question here. Do you think all future installments will feature all the previous characters? It's crazy to imagine how they build on such a big roster. How do you feel about a more detailed create a character mode? That is a good question. That's something that's been debated for some time. What do they do with the next Smash? And somebody might write in and be like, they've already said that this is their plan. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I could have swore that I saw a quote that said that they were going to start over. Like they wouldn't include everybody next time. I don't think they'll include everybody next time. I don't know if it's the right answer or not. Part of me wouldn't be surprised if we just got like Smash Bros. Ultimate 2 and maybe they did port it over and then do something like that. I don't know. And I know it sounds lame, but I don't like. Listen. Maybe I'm the wrong person to answer this because I'm a very Fairweather Smash Bros fan. Like I liked Melee back in the day, drinking with my buddies, and then the only other one I've really gotten into is Ultimate. And I don't even say I'm really into it. I play it. I haven't played in a couple years, but every once in a while I fire it up, and it is fun. I just suck at it. Truth be told, it wouldn't. It wouldn't offend me if they started over. Because you're right. Like here's the thing is like, I know it seems crazy to sit here and be like, they can't start over. They got all the characters, but like every other fighting game does. Every other fighting game doesn't include all the old characters plus new ones. Lots of them include some of the old characters and then some new ones. So and that's what Smash Brothers has always done. And we always thought the bar of Melee would never be surpassed. I think some would argue the bar of Melee still hasn't been surpassed, but yeah, so I think they will. I think they'll cut it back. You know, maybe they'll trim it down to 25, 30, 40, and then they can sell DLC by adding characters and do the hype again. And I think that's what they're going to do. As far as a detailed creative character mode, I think it'd be really cool. I don't think we're ever going to see it because I think Nintendo's too worried about what people would do. I think you know, like that'd be fucking sick, but it's Nintendo. I think they're too worried that people would create giant fighting penises and which I admittedly would select giant penis. And you know what I mean? Like I don't think it'll ever happen, but we'll see. I think if I have to, okay, we're going to move on. If I had to lock in my guess, the next Smash Brothers, they will reduce the roster and they'll start it kind of from scratch-ish, I think. Dave McGee says, good day, sir. With the negative reviews for Redfall, Xbox console sales, and Xbox Game Pass subs slowing down, do you think it's time for Phil Spencer to step down or step into just a PR role? As much as I like Spencer and what he says, maybe he's not cut out to be the CEO anymore. Thoughts? No, I don't think so. So Redfall is getting destroyed in the reviews. Xbox console sales are slowing down. Game Pass subs, there's no proof that, as far as I know, that division is up. Last time we covered that on the news, this game, they're not, I mean, if you say slowing down, maybe you just mean that they're not growing at the rate they were, which, yeah, you're right. But I wouldn't, because I think, listen, the original Xbox was pretty dope. And then Xbox 360, I think most Xbox fans would agree that the Xbox 360 was the best era, the most successful era in Xbox. I fucking love the Xbox 360. The Xbox One was a disaster right out of the fucking gate. The Xbox Series, everything started out really good. The Series X, the Series S started out great. Game Pass is cool. They were saying the right things. And then the lack of games and the lack of polished games really has been a black eye on it without question. But I feel like even with the bad, listen, if Starfield is a flaming disaster, maybe we revisit this discussion. But I'm trying to say this without sounding like a fanboy, because I've never hidden the fact I prefer Xbox to PlayStation, but I play all three. I prefer them Nintendo to Xbox to PlayStation. But I've said it countless times. I buy PlayStation consoles for PlayStation games, and PlayStation, I think their exclusives library can go toe-to-toe with Nintendo's. I buy their systems for their games, and I think their systems are their games are some of the best in gaming. So they have that over Xbox, and that's undeniable. PlayStation's been on top of the mountain forever for a reason. So I'm not trying to sound like a fanboy. I see the highs and lows, the ups and downs, the good and bad for every console. I think Xbox is in the best shape they've been in since the Xbox 360. I just think that the honeymoon is over. I agree with. Like 2.5 years ago when the Xbox Series everything launched, people were like, this is a new era for Xbox. Fuck yeah. And it was looking like a new era. And now it's like they're going out there buying all these studios. It's time to shit or get off the pot. Where are these fucking games? Give us something that works. Give us something good. The problem to me is if you fire Phil Spencer or Phil Spencer steps down or whatever, to me, it looks like you're just giving up. It's like you finally, listen, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't swallow up everything Phil Spencer shoves down my throat. I understand that the guy is a businessman, and the reason he's the face of the company is because he comes across as likable. I think he's 10 times the spokesperson for their brand that Jim Ryan is for PlayStation, but I also don't think that like Phil Spencer's all of our best friend who just wants to give us all a hug and give us, like, he's out there trying to sell consoles. That said, he is a likable dude. And if you fire him or he steps down or whatever and you start over in the middle of this generation after the disaster that was the Xbox One, it kind of feels like you're like, all right, we fucked up again. Sorry, we'll fix it. And I don't think they can get away with that. Do you know what I mean? Even if it's true, and it is kind of true so far, I don't think he can do that. He has done some good things. They need all these studios they're buying to start putting up or shutting up. And I think Starfield is going to tell the tale of the tape. They need Starfield. Dude, I said it on Game Patch last week. I don't remember the last time a game company needed a game to deliver like Xbox needs fucking Starfield to deliver. So I wouldn't do it yet because I feel like it's a bad look for a brand that's already kind of struggling. But, write in again after Starfield if it bombs, and maybe we'll revisit this. For now, I would give them to Starfield at least. Maya Buttreeks wrote in and said, Adam, can you remember the game you had the most anticipation and excitement waiting for? This upcoming Zelda is mine. I don't remember ever being so pumped and downright fucking ready for a release. I think I feel a sickness coming on the 12th. I don't think I'll be able to go into work. We actually had a couple people write in this week saying they're taking the day off to play Zelda all day. Respect. Retupect to all of you that are taking the day off to play a video game. I fucking love it. I get excited for lots of games. If I had to, off the top of my head, the two games that I think of that I remember being most excited for, one is WWF No Mercy back in high school on the 64. I could not stop playing World Tour, WCW NWO Revenge, WrestleMania 2000. I was such a big wrestling fan, and I could not wait for that fucking game, and it delivered. It was the best. And the other one is probably Halo 2. Anyone that was a Halo fan back when Halo 2 came out, you remember just the hype was off the fucking charts. It was insane. So those are probably the two that jump off the page the most for me. Honestly, Final Fantasy VII Remake, the first part of that was on that list for me too. I was really stoked for that game. It's an inanimate carbon rod wrote in and said, hey, Adam, love the video game Villain Mount Rushmore episode. You mentioned the Goomba from World 1-1 of Super Mario Brothers would definitely be in a Villain Hall of Fame. And after giving it a little thought, a Villain Hall of Fame would make for a fantastic future episode. Is that something you might be open to? Thanks, and keep up the good content. I would call it okay content. Thank you, Inanimate Carbon Rod. Yes, actually, for those of you that don't know, this summer is the 5th anniversary of Remember the Game, and to celebrate, we are officially opening an imaginary WWE-style Hall of Fame. I Remember the Game Hall of Fame. I still haven't quite figured out how we're going to handle inductions and what I'm going to do with that yet, but at some point this summer, there will be an expansion pass dedicated to the first ever class of the Remember the Game Hall of Fame. It's going to be a good fucking time. JB Sharps says, hey, Adam, when you pick up an old game you haven't played in a while, does it ever surprise you how much you remember from an old playthrough? Last week, I fired up Tony Hawk's Underground 2 for the first time in about 15 years after you guys brought it up on the Pro Skater episode a couple weeks back, and holy fuck, was I surprised at how many little secrets about that game I remembered. It felt like riding a bike. Not to bring up WWF No Mercy for the second time in one episode, but WWF No Mercy. I bought a copy of it last year just because I thought it'd be a fun game to stream. I'd like to stream more of that. I should stream more of that. And I had not played WWF No Mercy since probably 2002, 2003. And within 2 matches, I had the difficulty all the way up to expert, and it just felt like an old friend. I remembered everything. I remember the timing for reversals, all of it. And it was like riding a bike. So that's the one that comes to mind for me. And it's fucking sick. I love that feeling. Man, I love video games. And finally, before we move on, as always, it's letter time. Straw Hat Luigi says, hey, Adam, update. I did indeed graduate college this past Saturday and proceeded to get embarrassingly drunk the next day having a Mario Party marathon party. Good for you, Straw Hat Luigi. Anyway, my question is, what is the video game commercial you remember the most as a kid? Personally, one I remember the most were the Mario Baseball for the GameCube commercials, but I'd love to hear yours and maybe keep it in a whole expansion pass or Remember the Game episode about old game commercials. Keep up the good work. I actually have it on my ideas list to do an episode of Expansion Pass about old commercials someday. So I won't go through all of them, but I thought this was a fun idea. There's so many. Okay, I'm going to go 4. There's 4 that like instantly come to mind for me, and those are the ones I want to talk about. Number 1, the Crash Bandicoot games. From when Crash first launched, and Crash, there was like the dude in the Crash Bandicoot costume standing outside of Nintendo HQ with the megaphone chirping Mario. Like, hey, plumber boy, your worst nightmare has arrived. And it was fucking, I loved those fucking commercials so much. So that's number one for sure. Number two, does anyone else remember the Yoshi's Island commercials from the SNES era with the dude that was just eating and eating and eating and eating, and it would like show him eat and then show the game and then show him eat and then show the game, and then finally he was like super full, and then he like dunked his finger in like some whipped cream or something and was like, meh. And he ate like that last bite and then just exploded. And then it showed more of Yoshi's Island. It was fucking a disgusting commercial. That was from when Nintendo was in their like gross out phase and they were doing the like play it loud and stuff like that. I don't know if anyone else remembers this commercial other than me, but I vividly remember that commercial and it was awesome. I remember the commercial for Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins. And it was the debut of Wario and he was like trying to hypnotize you through the TV. If you don't remember it, I don't know how else to explain it, but it was fucking awesome. It was a good commercial. And, wow, man, what was the fourth one? No, there was a fourth one that was clearly in my mind. Crash. And then the guy eating too much food. And then Wario trying to hypnotize me. I can't remember now, damn it. So I guess I'm going with 3. Damn it all. Damn it. Oh, no, the fourth one was, I can't remember if it was for a particular game or if it was just for the Genesis, but it would show like a fucking TV strapped to like a race car and show like Sonic and like show Sega games being super fast. And then they would show this like old beat up TV strapped to the back of this old van that was like puttering down the highway. And it would show like Super Mario Kart. And then it was Sega does what Nintendo don't and Genesis does what Nintendo don't. I remember like that particular commercial. God, we will do an episode on this. That could be a lot of fun. Anyway, we got to move on. Thank you, everybody, for writing in. Appreciate all of you so much. Let's change things up. Get to our Smash It segment, the official game show of Remember the Game Industries. It is Play 1, Remake 1, Erase 1. And a huge thank you to Classic Concentration from the NES for unknowingly providing us with the theme music for the show. The rules are simple. Every week I give our listeners 3 retro video games. They can play one as it was released, remake one as a modern game, and the third is Erased Forever. As always, there are no wrong answers, but there is a right one. And I'll tell you what it was in just a minute. This week we're talking Saturday Night Slam Masters, so I went with 3 old school fighters, Mortal Kombat 2, Tekken 3, and Street Fighter 2. And whichever one you erase, you're erasing all the versions of, so you can't get by on a loophole. 40% said they would play Street Fighter 2, remake Mortal Kombat 2, and erase Tekken 3, which very much surprises me because I thought people loved Tekken 3 based on the amount of requests I get to cover Tekken 3. Let's see what a few of you had to say here, then I'll tell you what the right answer was. 113 replies this week. So apparently I might not be a fighting game fan, but most of you are. Holy fuck. Alex P. says, play Street Fighter 2. It's a classic for a reason. Maybe remake Mortal Kombat 2. My nostalgia for this game is insane. There's my voice crack. Is insane. I wouldn't want a full-on modern remake, but rather something like Street Fighter 2 remake we got on the Switch, polished with the same vibe as the original. And then erase Tekken because it just sounds annoying. I love that logic more than I can possibly express. Erase Tekken because it sounds... What about Tekken sounds annoying? I don't know, but I sound logic, Alex. Gold star. Fuck, that's good stuff. I lost my place in my notes, so now I'm just stalling for time. Here we go. Amanda Hug and Kiss. Shout out to him to get that reference. That's a good handle. Wrote in and said, play Tekken. Those early Tekken games were fun, but also goofy. Getting to play as Kuma the bear and the wooden training dummy would still make for a fun night with a friend. Remake Street Fighter 2. Just dropped my pen. Remake Street Fighter 2 with the same limited cast and old mechanics, but with a new art style and good online netcode. And delete Mortal Kombat 2 because there's like 15 Mortal Kombat games and 13 of them are just better versions of number 2. That seems like a spicy take, but the only Mortal Kombat I've ever played is Mortal Kombat 2. So maybe you're right. I don't know. All right, fair enough. Annex said, I'll play Tekken 3 since it's my favorite fighting game and also my favorite PS1 game, and the controls are tight enough that it doesn't need any work. Remake Mortal Kombat 2, the AI in the original arcade machine was infamous for straight-out cheating once you got to a certain part in the game, so I'd remake the AI to make it less BS. And I'll erase Street Fighter 2, even though the characters are iconic, I can never get around all the buttons that different punches and kicks, which Tekken simplifies with one button per limb. Yeah, I never played Tekken, but I did always find the controls a little... I mean, I suck at Street Fighter, straight up, but I did always find those controls a little intimidating. Chris Copland said, play Tekken 3. This is fighting game bliss and really showed the power of the PS1 and firmly established this series over Virtua Fighter. haven't heard that in a while. Remake Street Fighter 2. We got a million remakes, and they were for the better, so I'd want to keep those as Street Fighter 2 is the definitive 1v1 fighting game. And then erase Mortal Kombat 2. It's just cheesy, gory Street Fighter. If it had never existed, maybe better games like King of Fighters and Fatal Fury would have gotten more attention. Get the fuck out. That's a hot take. Because I have a soft spot in my heart for Mortal Kombat 2. Because I owned it as a kid, even though I suck at fighting games. And DJK says, these games can only be graded through use of beverage comparative methodology. Play Street Fighter 2 as this is the whiskey of the three and age 30 years. It's as smooth as silk. Remake Tekken 3 as I like my coffee. Future Tekken installments are an almond milk hazelnut latte. Forget that. Give me my flat white, no sugar with a little cookie on the side. That's the Tekken we need. Fair enough. That leaves Mortal Kombat 2, that dirty bucket of shots you bought when you were in your late teens, thinking they were cool, but after half a dozen too many, you woke up with a hangover in the middle of nowhere with your spine laying beside you. Erase those memories. Erase Mortal Kombat 2. Well said, DJK. I'm actually going with the majority of you this week, 40%. I agree with you, including Andrew Sugart, who said, play Street Fighter 2. It's still fun to this day. Remake Mortal Kombat 2. I want to see that blood in 4K. And erase Tekken 3. 3D fighters are no good. I actually agree with most of your logic. I'm going to play Street Fighter 2 because it is cool and it is fun to this day, even though I'm terrible at it. I'm going to remake Mortal Kombat 2 because I had it growing up and I liked it. It'd be cool to see it in like modern graphics. It'd be neat. And I'm going to erase Tekken 3 so I never get looped into embarrassing myself talking about it here on the show. But now that I know it's a 3D fighter, tenfold. I suck at fighters. I agree with you. Anyway, thank you everyone for playing. As always, we got to keep this ball rolling. Let's pause for a quick word from our sponsors, and then I'll tell you what I've been playing over the last week or so. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. It turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs, and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. All right, what have I been playing? I'm playing Dark Cloud right now. I'm playing on my PS5, but I think it's the PS4 release of the PS2 game on PS5. I started out not liking it. The more I play it, the more I kind of do like it. So we're going to be covering that in a few weeks, but it's pretty neat. I've also been playing Advance Wars Reboot Camp on my Switch. I actually beat the original Advance Wars, well, the reboot version of it last night. And we're going to be covering that on Remember the Game next week. I never played the original versions of Advance Wars, but I really enjoyed this one. It was really fun. I don't know when I'm going to find time to play Advance Wars 2, but I am going to because I really like the first one. I'm still playing WWE 2K23 on my Steam Deck. Fucking loving it. Truth be told, that could end up a top 10 all-time wrestling game for me. I'll be reviewing that on Expansion Pass in the coming weeks. And I've also been playing EA Sports PGA Tour. Loving that as well. And I'll be reviewing that on Expansion Pass in the coming weeks too. Lots of fun games. And then obviously Tears of the Kingdom's coming on Friday. I don't have a choice. I got to play that. But that's then. This is now. Let's talk Saturday Night Slam Masters. That's why you're here. As always, I like to give you nerds a chance to sound off before my guests and I hog the microphone. Max Reno wrote in and said, love this game. Characters were sick. The music was banging. Gameplay-wise, unless you know character moves, good luck with grapples. It's like playing Warzone or Attitude without a move list to check. If you know, you know. Otherwise, perfect blend of wrestling and fighting perfect blend of wrestling and fighting on one of, if not the best console. Now that is a catchphrase. That's a catch-22 because it was on Super Nintendo and Genesis. And arcade. So I don't know what you're talking about. But I agree with everything else you said. Michael Wilson says, always felt like Final Fight in a ring. As a kid loving wrestling and beat 'em ups, I loved it. Looking back, it may not have been meant to feel like a beat 'em up, but the grappling was such a pain I never did it. Great memories, love the graphics and sound. It's a nice little game. And that's a nice little comment, because I do agree. I've never played Final Fight, but it does kind of feel like a mix between wrestling and beat 'em up as a fighting game. And the grappling was kind of useless. I agree with that. Bryce Larson said, this was the only SNES wrestling game I cared about. How my preteen mind figured out how to pull off those specials, I will never know. But the feeling of throttling the fuck out of Biff Slamkovich with El Stingray never got old. I haven't played it since I sold it like an idiot in my college days, but I'm stoked to hear what a wrestling/beat-em-up aficionado like yourself thinks about it today. Cheers, my friend. Cheers to you, Bryce, for playing as El Stingray, because that was my main too, because El Stingray is El Superb. Silver Grunion said, if they made it a little more forgiving in difficulty, it could have been the GOAT of 16-bit wrestling. Still better than AEW's Fight Forever by default. The two greatest words in the English language, default. Shout out if you get that reference. I do indeed. Dude, somebody the other day in Mike the Ref's Twitch stream called AEW Fight Forever, AEW Wait Forever. I fucking don't know who it was. I'm sure if you're hearing this, or if you are hearing this, tip of my cap. Fucking outstanding comment. I don't know that game's ever coming. And Triple said, Street Fighter meets wrestling in a great game. I originally played this thinking it was going to be another wrestling game, judging by the box art. I thought that too. And I was pleasantly surprised. My brother and I would play this for hours into the night. I remember trying to keep him out of the ring for cheap wins. Is this a sign we are to see more fighting games in Remember the Game's future? One can only hope. Probably not. Probably not, to be honest with you, Triple. But I did quite enjoy this one. I also thought it was a wrestling game, which is how I got suckered into talking about it. And it's time to do just that. I'm going to cue up some music. And when it stops, the big deal who sponsored this episode is going to swing by and explain his love of Saturday Night Slam Masters. And then Mike the Ref are going to take you back to the early 90s and talk Saturday Night fucking Slam Masters, which originally released on July 13th, 1993. Enjoy the podcast, everybody. Let's go. All right, so as I'm sure I'll have said during the infamous intro, this is another one of our Stupid Sexy sponsored episodes. I fucking love that tag for it. We are talking Saturday Night Slam Masters, and what better person to talk Saturday Night Slam Masters with than the person that sponsored the episode, but the one and only Big Deal, the Big Deal, one of my favorite handles in all of Remember the Game Industries. Big Deal. How are you, buddy? How's things?
I'm good, but I think you're lying there, because there are far better handles. I think Super Nintendo Chalmers is probably the best one, and one that I wish I would have thought of when I joined Patreon.
There's some gems, and there's a few that like I didn't catch the joke, and then people have messaged me and been like, hey, you're supposed to say it this way, and I'm like, oh, now I get it. There's a fucking, I suck. So note for all of you that sign up, yeah, don't make your handles too clever, because you're going to go over the host's head, and I'm the one that needs to convey your message to the masses. But the Big Deal, I understand. I fucking love that name, and we'll get into the origin of that name in a second. But we're talking Saturday Night Slam Masters. So before we get into anything else, my friend, I just want to know, you sponsored this episode some time ago, so thank you for your patience, by the way. Why? What is it with Saturday Night Slam Masters that got you all hot and horny and said, I want to talk about this on Remember the Game?
So the short answer is, this is a game that I discovered when I was first getting into wrestling. So I didn't watch it growing up, but I really got into it in middle school. Late 95, when WCW Monday Nitro launched. I was really into WCW, and I was a Sega Genesis kid, so I'm sure we would have hated each other at the time.
We would have been arch nemesis. Yeah.
But back then, my grandpa Simpson, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have streaming services. So there was a video store that I frequented that had an entire wall of VHS tapes going all the way back to WrestleMania 1, and that's how I kind of learned about the history of wrestling. And there was also a video store down that same block. They were, a 30-second walk from each other. That had a ton of video games, and I played WWF Royal Rumble and Raw ad nauseum. I think I own both of those. But there were two games that I rented all the time, and that was WrestleMania, the arcade game, and Saturday Night Slam Masters. And the box art for this was really captivating. When I played it, it felt so uniquely different from those WWF games, just in its presentation, the way that they stylized the characters, the way it played, and I just really, really fell in love with this game at the time that I was falling in love with pro wrestling.
I love it. Now, let me ask you, first of all, at some point, we're going to review WrestleMania, the arcade game on this show. Like, what a stupid game. That's the one where, like, The Undertaker could hit people with tombstones and stuff. Like, what a fucking stupid game.
I enjoyed it, but you probably hate it because you probably played it on the Super Nintendo, where you only have 6 playable characters.
I actually played it on the PS1.
Okay.
That was my play. I didn't hate it. I just thought it was stupid, but I didn't hate it.
I did run it a ton. I went to a buddy's house who had it for Super Nintendo. I looked at the selection and was like, no, I'm not playing this.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think it holds a candle to WWF Royal Rumble or Raw. I love those games.
No.
This one, though, I'll ask you, because I'll be honest with you, dude, I'm not upset, but like I thought this was a wrestling game. Like, I thought this was a Fire Pro Wrestling style wrestling game. When you started renting it, did you know it was a fighting game, or did you rent it not thinking it was a wrestling game?
I mean, I considered it a wrestling game. I feel like it played more like WrestleFest, and this did originate as an arcade game. It came out in '93, so I think it was stylized that way. And really, I know it feels like a fighting game because there are so many similarities to Street Fighter, with just the presentation. But I think that Capcom took a big risk on this, or at least they decided to think outside of the box, because this is wholly different from any other Capcom fighting game.
Yeah.
And a traditional fighting game, you have just a 2D plane. You can move left to right. You press up to jump. You have multiple attack buttons. This, I would argue, actually feels more like a beat 'em up. It feels like you're playing a side-scrolling beat 'em up game. You have a dedicated attack button, a dedicated jump button. You can move in all 4 directions. And it's like you're going through the boss rush of a beat 'em up game. So, I think there are similarities to both, but it feels so different from, something like a Street Fighter. And it also feels so different from a Royal Rumble or Raw.
Yeah.
I loved the charm in this. I loved the animation style. I loved the gameplay. I was pretty horrible at it too. But I think that, it just had a lot of charm, and I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, it's a cool game. Like, so term that Mark McHugh taught me, a Venn diagram. Now that I know what those are, this is kind of like you took like a fighting game, a beat 'em up, and a wrestling game, and it's like that little part in the middle where all 3 circles cross over. And I went into it thinking it was just gonna be like a wrestling, like a WWF Raw, like a wrestling game. And then I realized, like, oh, this is like a fighting game, but with pins, and you're in like a wrestling ring, and you can throw people off the ropes and stuff. And I am abysmal at it. We'll get into a fucking terrible at it, but I you know what? Maybe my new favorite fighting game ever. I'm never gonna be a big fighting game guy. I don't get them, but this is so cool. As another big pro wrestling fan, I agree with you. I think the graphics are great. It looks awesome. It oozes character. It's a really cool little video game. And I want to get into some of the details and your favorite wrestlers and stuff like that. But I said we were going to talk about it just quickly. You were telling me off air why you were the big deal, and I just fucking love. So I just quickly I don't want to forget to bring this up. Why are you the big deal? Then we'll get into Saturday. I promise. But why? So
I may or may not have been involved in the professional wrestling business at an independent level from 2000 to 2013. And I've commented to you that I really like when you tell a lot of your stand-up stories, because a lot of those hit home with the travel, with trying to get bookings, all of those things. There are so many similarities between the two. But I got out of it in 2013. My life kind of went in a different direction. I got married, started a family, went back to school and got my degree. And I came back in 2019 and returned to a promotion that I had a lot of history with. I had been with that promotion for 12 years straight. I had been their heavyweight champion. I was very recognizable, and went out one night and attacked a guy named Bro Hemoth, which you probably think is an awesome name.
It is awesome.
And I got a very lukewarm reaction. In fact, even one guy yelling, "Who are you?" So I realized very quickly that the audience had turned over, and I cut a promo after that, not that night, but after the fact, basically doing the Ron Burgundy. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a big deal around here. And then the name kind of just stuck from there.
I love it. What a great, when you were telling me off air, you're like, I don't know if I want to tell it. I'm like, the fuck you don't. I'm such a big wrestling fan. I fucking love that story. I'm kind of a big deal. I love it. Fuck yes. Okay, so we know why you're the big deal. We understand where you came from when it came to Saturday Night Slam Masters. I suck at this game. I already said that. But I have to say, I've tried every character. I follow the advice of everybody. And I found by far the person I did the best with was Stingray. But that's because in most fighting games, I do best with like the fast jump around characters because I can just avoid getting hit because I'm not very good.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, like, give me a rundown here. Who do you like? Who's your champion? Because I think there's some great characters in this game. Some great characters.
I typically like playing as the more well-rounded guys. You have your Gunlock and Biff Slamkovich, who are dressed like traditional wrestlers. They're kind of the Ryu and Ken, in which they have the same exact moveset, which I think is a little bullshit for a game with such a small roster.
Yeah.
I like playing as the Great Oni, who's kind of the Japanese wrestler that spits mist before and after a victory. Has probably one of my favorite trash talks where after a match he says "Sayonara, barbarian dog breath."
That's the one with the pink hair.
Yes.
Yeah, I like Oni too. Yeah.
And I like playing as Stingray as well. So in the Super Nintendo version that you played, there's only 8 playable characters, but in the Genesis version, which I grew up playing, there's 10. The 2 boss characters are playable there, and Scorpion, who looks like he's wearing a Cobra Commander mask.
Not to be confused with Mortal Kombat Scorpion.
Yes,
this is the other. This is a different Scorpion.
He's probably the one I played as the most. He's just really badass. He's pretty well rounded as far as strength, but he's also really quick and agile. And I kind of found out that that's really where the strategy lies, because once you get past maybe the 3rd or 4th fight, if you try going in kind of face to face and just mashing the attack button, you're going to get eaten alive every time, because you'll get knocked down.
You are.
They'll pick you up, grapple you, knock you down, pick you up, grapple you again, and you'll lose your entire health bar without getting a chance to move away. So really the key when you get later in the game is to create distance and kind of telegraph your attacks. So the ones that are quicker or have more agility, can jump higher or further, are the ones that have the best chance of getting an attack in. What's nice about this game is you're not just walking around hitting the attack button. You can do a running dash, you can do a jumping attack, a running, dashing, jumping attack, and they all have different animations for different moves depending on how much momentum you have, which I think is really cool.
Yeah,
there are not a lot of grapple moves that you can do, so it's not deep in that part. But as far as your attack moves, there is a lot of variety. So I find that if I'm using Oni or Stingray or Scorpion, I have a better chance of running into the ropes, jumping halfway across the ring, and then just nailing them with a kick.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to say too, you mentioned like in the old fighting games, like I'm thinking, Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, like Super Nintendo fighting games. It was basically like just the straight up 2D. Like you were just walking left to right, and that was I obviously, like, there's the implements of like you can whip people off the ropes, so you can get in and out of the ring, and you can get weapons and stuff. But like just the idea that this has, I guess for lack of a better term 3D, like it's got a little bit of that other depth where you can move up toward the top of the ring and back toward the front of the ring,
almost like an isometric plane.
Yeah, I think that I mean it's just, as someone that doesn't have a ton of fighting game experience, I actually really enjoyed that. As someone that likes to stick and move and run away because I'm not very good, it gives me a lot more freedom to do that, and I think that adds another layer of depth to the game, especially when you get into 4-player, which we'll talk about in a minute. But
yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, go ahead. I just like that. That's all.
And what I like about it too, and this is probably my favorite part of it. So again, I played a lot of the WWF games where you have your attack or grapple, but with this you have one button to attack, but you have a dedicated jump button. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, but being able to just jump high in the air, determine your trajectory and at what point you're gonna throw your feet out for that drop kick. Or if you're coming off the top rope and you're doing a move, to just have full control of that feels so satisfying to me.
Yeah,
that's probably one of my favorite things to do, is run off the ropes, get momentum, jump halfway across the ring, and then just nail them with the drop kick. That, like, Oh, it feels so good.
I could swear that a lot of fighting games from this era, at least the home console ones, you had to push up to jump. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong, because I've always, as someone that loves platforming and shit like that, that has always just felt so foreign and weird to me. So I agree.
Yeah.
Like the dedicated jump button was dope, as was being able to, you could jump off the top rope in a fucking fighting game. That's so sick. I was all over that top rope. It's awesome.
Comparing it to a fighting game like Street Fighter, like there were a lot of things that they did differently, but also comparing it to like Raw and Royal Rumble, there were a lot of things that they did, differently that really set it apart, and were really ahead of their time for a wrestling game.
Yeah.
So I'll give the example that that they had weight detection in the game, which you wouldn't see until No Mercy.
Yeah.
Where if you're playing as Stingray, he has a move where a grapple move where he throws the guy over his head for like kind of a press slam. He can't do that to half the characters because of because they're heavyweight or super heavyweight.
Mm-hmm.
Different characters have different body sizes or heights. So if you're playing Raw and you're playing Luna Vachon versus The Undertaker, who's 7 feet tall, their sprite is the same size.
Yeah.
Whereas in this game, if you're playing as El Stingray, who's billed as 5'5", and Titanic Tim, who's billed at a ridiculous 7'9", like you can see the size difference in those sprites.
Yeah, dude. Alexander the Greater or whatever, the dude that was clearly based on Vader, which, like, rest in peace, Vader. I love Vader.
Yeah, Vader and Bastion Booger, if you look at the top half of his outfit.
Totally. The first time I got in a match with him, I was like, holy fuck, this guy's a fucking behemoth. But it was so cool to see those obvious differences in the way they all look. Plus, as someone that sucks at fighting games, it's fun that I can actually do moves, because I just have to grapple you and then push up and attack. And I can, instead of trying to remember like up, I know there's like the up, down, left, right attack combos in this, but that you can basically just do moves by just grabbing and doing a move. That appealed to me, because I can never remember the big combos and stuff. So
everyone plays the same in terms of their movesets, save for a special attack and a special grapple. Mm-hmm. Some of them are more basic, where you just double tap repeatedly. Some of them are a little more complex, but they're a lot easier to pull off than doing a fireball or an uppercut in Street Fighter, which I could never get the hang of.
Tell me about it.
There's other things too, like everyone, depending on the character, has a different speed, a different jumping trajectory, how much damage they do with their attacks or grapples, different reach. Like Titanic Tim, obviously, because he's 7'9", has a tall reach, but Jumbo Flapjack, his arms are like double the length of like a normal arm. Like they are ridiculous. Like I got owned by him so many times, just because like you can't get anywhere close to him, because he nails you with just like a big slap. And then by the time he gets to Scorpion, he's a cakewalk in comparison.
And what's wild is all these characters have this variety, and then you throw in, it's not just one-on-one, but you can do the tag team mode, which like I finished when I first fired up that tag team mode, I was a little disappointed that it wasn't actually like tag team. It was like a fight, like it's just like a 2v2 fighting game. But then I realized, like, dude, at an arcade, I've never played this at an actual arcade cabinet. Playing this on an arcade cabinet with 3 friends in that tag team 2v2, and you could break up pins and save each other and shit. I think I could play that for hours with my buddies. I think that would be so much fun. I actually enjoy that mode more than the one-on-one myself.
It's a little misleading because it's called Tag Team Battle Royal, but it's not an actual Battle Royal. It's just a tag team kind of elimination, because you can get pinned or eliminated. Or I'm trying to remember. I didn't play this a ton, because I didn't play the arcade or Super Nintendo version. And maybe that's a good segue, because there are different iterations of the game.
Yeah.
So this was originally an arcade game. I just recently looked up a picture of the arcade cabinet, and you'll have to do this too. But instead of a 4-player cabinet like a Ninja Turtles, where there's 4 sets of joysticks and buttons all together, it is 2-player cabinets that are Frankenstein together side by side.
Oh shit! Really? Yeah. That's awesome.
It is awesome, but it also makes me wonder like how popular it was, because I had never seen it in the arcade. I didn't realize it was an arcade game until years after I had originally played it on the Genesis. And part of me believes that maybe it wasn't a big success because a lot of arcade owners just maybe didn't want to take up, double the space for a single game.
Well, especially because you gotta, let's call a spade, right? Like this is Street Fighter 2 era. Yeah. And you couldn't touch Street Fighter 2, right? Like you just couldn't. So
every arcade I went in had a Street Fighter game, but I had never seen this before in my life.
Me neither.
side
No.
of the consoles.
No,
So
me neither.
so the Super Nintendo version, from what I can tell, is a direct one-to-one port of the arcade game. Like you start at an initial option screen where you can change your difficulty, you can listen to a sound test. But once you select start game, it goes into the same menu you get on the arcade. I think the only difference that I spotted is that there's a referee in the arcade version that there isn't on the home console versions.
Right.
So that's the version you get for Super Nintendo, complete with 4-player capabilities. Because,
Yeah.
and I didn't learn this until a few months ago, but you guys actually had a 4-player multi-tap for the Super Nintendo that I'm really jealous of. But also
Yeah.
kind of criticizing, because where was that for Turtles in Time?
Yeah, no shit. Hey, I never knew a single person that owned them all, because like it was good for Bomberman too, I guess. But I never knew a single person that you had to be so dude. We'd break controllers and I'd have to beg my mom for 6 months to get me a new controller, much less to get me 4 and a fucking multi-tap. That wasn't gonna happen.
Yeah,
So,
I had one of those for either PS1 or PS2 to play wrestling games.
yeah, same.
But yeah, that would have been great. But Genesis didn't have that. We only had 2-player capability, so they took that mode out entirely and they replaced it with a death match, which is just a normal like one-on-one match. But they changed the arena. So instead of the CWA, the Capcom Wrestling Association, which I want to talk about, they changed it to the BWA, the Blood Wrestling Association. The ropes are replaced with barbed wire, and there are bombs on the left and right side that would explode if you touch them or if you whip someone into them. And then when you do that, a weapon flies in to the ring from the audience. And there's also bombs on the floor that'll explode if you touch them, which, again, I was playing this in 96, 97 when ECW was really popular. So I thought it was really cool.
Sure.
I didn't really miss the fact that there wasn't, that tag team mode. But we also had Scorpion and Jumbo Flapjack as playable characters. So I had 10 to choose from instead of 8 on the Super Nintendo. And then one other change that I thought was really cool is you had 4 different outfits you could choose from for a wrestler. They were all palette swaps, but you could.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you could usually have like a red, blue, green, or yellow.
It's so funky to me. It's so funky to me that games can be on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis and be so different, but be the same.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing when it's Mortal Kombat and one has blood and one doesn't, but like to see these types of changes, like it's wild to me. It's just
and I have to think that they changed it because of the 4-player.
Yeah.
But I mean, they did make some significant changes between the two.
Sure. That's crazy. So, sorry, before we take this home, I wanted to know, you had mentioned this Capcom Wrestling Association.
Yes.
I'm lost with the lore of this. I think it's just a bunch of wrestlers beating the shit out of each other. So what the fuck is going on? Why are what? Because you literally fly around the world wrestling each other, which is awesome. But
I don't know too much about the lore, but it's referred to as both the CWA and the CPWA, the Capcom Professional Wrestling Association, at different points of the game. But Mike Hagar, who's one of the characters in this, is from the Final Fight franchise, and you probably don't know that because I believe you said that you never.
I don't,
because it had ugly box art.
It has terrible box art, and I took a lot of shit for that. But I don't give a fuck. That box art sucks. Fuck you. Go ahead.
They have a character from another Capcom game, which is cool, but it's really odd that it's just one. So you'd have to think that if this is a Capcom Wrestling Association, it's open to all of Capcom. Why aren't there more Capcom characters in here? Like, I think Dr. Wily could have made a Robot Master and called him WrestleMan.
Yeah,
get equipped with steel chair.
That'd be awesome.
But yeah, they could have put in people from other franchises too. And I guess they had the ability to do more with this franchise, but they didn't, because when they made the sequel to this game, it's called Ring of Destruction Slam Masters 2. They just went back to the basics of a fighting game and made it identical to Street Fighter with these characters.
That's lame.
Yeah, I found it and played one round of it, and I'm like, I don't enjoy this at all.
No,
so it controlled the same as Street Fighter, had none of the appeal and charm that this had.
Yeah, like to me, that's what the charm of this is that it's wrestling. It's a wrestling fighting game. It's fucking awesome. Like Killer Instinct, you have the crazy over top characters. Mortal Kombat, you have the gore. Street Fighter is Street Fighter. That's to me what set this apart, was that I'm like, as a wrestling fan, I'm like, this is a fighting game I'm interested in because it's wrestling. So to fucking take all that out, I'm like, now it's just a watered down Street Fighter. That's no fucking.
Yeah. I do want to touch on the story mode. Not that there's much of a story. It is built like Street Fighter in that you go around to different locations, fighting different people. This game actually takes you around the world, from Los Angeles to Mexico to all places around the world back to the U.S., where you finally fight the final boss in Calgary, which you
Yes.
appreciate.
I love it.
But depending on how many times you continue throughout your journey depends on the ending that you get. So if you're able to do it without continuing too many times, I don't know what the exact cutoff is. You will get you'll get the scene where you're in the ring with 2 trophies and the championship belt. There are 3 businessmen that are kind of applauding you, and you get a scene that says the new CWA champion is born. His name is blank. You cut a quick promo based on your character, and it says a new battle begins. Or I'm sorry, that's what happens when you do the first round.
Yeah.
So you go around, you land in Calgary, beat Scorpion, you get that scene, and then you have to go around defending your title. So you do that loop a second time. So the second time is when you get that scene in the ring with the businessmen, and you say, now I'm the strongest, most powerful wrestler, the undisputed champion. And then the guy from the title screen that looks like Hulk Hogan comes out and says, wait, before you lay claim to that title, you must defeat me. I'm not as young as I was then, but I can still defeat you. And then you cut a promo against him, and it says the next battle begins. And then it just rolls credits without actually giving you that fight or that match, which, you can, if you took all that time playing through and you were expecting an extra boss battle or an extra unlockable, it seems kind of bullshit.
I'd be pissed, quite frankly. I was never going to get that far, but I would have been pissed if I had.
That's considered the good ending. I have never gotten that. The bad ending, however, which I would argue is the good ending. I showed you a video of this before.
It's phenomenal.
I'll let you explain it.
No, it's you. You showed it to me. By all means, go ahead.
So you set the same scene. You're in the ring. You're celebrating with trophies and the championship belt. You said you're the strongest, most powerful. There are 3 businessmen that are applauding you, and then out of nowhere, a table flies in the ring, hits the 3 of these guys on the head, just knocks them completely out. You don't see them again anywhere. It's like they just disintegrated from that.
Yeah.
And you cut to the other side of the ring where there are these 3 guys in black trunks and red shirts that basically do the same thing. They challenge you and said, you're no match for our power. Come on, we'll crush you. And you get the same thing. The next battle begins. You don't actually have a match with them.
It's just, I beg you, if you're listening to this, just Google it and just look it up. You'll find a video that has all the endings. It's like 20 minutes long. Just watch the first 30 seconds. That's exactly what we did. To fucking watch they don't put these business people through the table. They just throw a fucking table at them. And it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. I fucking died. And watch it. It is, it makes me want to, I'll never be able to beat this fucking game, but it makes me want to, just to see these guys get beaten with this fucking table. It's phenomenal.
So I didn't share this with you when we talked about the ending, but that's the ending that you get in the arcade and Super Nintendo. If you're playing the Genesis version and you don't get the Victor Ortega ending, you get a screen that says, congratulations, presented by Capcom, which is such bullshit.
Yeah, you guys got fucked. You Sega kids got fucked. It's like, what's the point? Like, honestly, I think the throwing of a table is better than the Hulk Hogan guy.
It absolutely is. I consider that the good ending, and I take all those losses as a badge of honor.
I gotta say, man, like, what a great little game. I suck at it. I know nothing of fighting games. I always feel like a fish out of water talking about them. But I bought this game for like $3 and I've been playing it. And I'm like, I'm still gonna play it every once in a while just for the lulz. I love looking at it. I love the way this game looks. It's fun to play, and it's wrestling. I love wrestling. It's a fun. And I never would have touched it if you hadn't sponsored this episode. So thank you for bringing it to my attention. It's a fun little game. It's really
and
cool.
I will plug that it's available on the Switch. It's part of the I think it's the Capcom Arcade Stadium 2. You can buy it standalone for $2 US, and it sounds like $3 Canadian.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's well worth it, the $2 to $3 price.
Yeah,
tag.
absolutely. That's what I'm playing is on Xbox. Same thing, the Capcom Arcade Collection, and it's money well spent. It was $3 well spent. So we need to score this thing. And I always let my guests, if you have a good idea for a scoring system, let's roll. Now, my thought was like, if you don't have one, I was like, we'll go out at 25 cents. It's a quarter to arcade cabinet. But you have maybe the most work that's ever gone into a scoring system. So big deal. How are we scoring this fucking game?
So I track the flights of the journey that you do, both winning and defending the championship in this game. You fly from Los Angeles to Mexico City, to Sydney, to Tokyo, to Moscow, to Hanover, to London, to New York, to Calgary twice, which is a total of 52,420 miles.
I love it. All right, then this is my new favorite scale ever. All right, so big deal. You're the guest, so the floor is yours. Out of 52,400, What are you scoring Saturday Night Slam Masters? What a great scale.
So I'll give it a 48,000, which will land me somewhere in Canada between New York and Calgary. I think 48 out of 52 is pretty fair. I have a lot of nostalgia for this, and there is a lot of charm to this game and a lot that it did that was ahead of its time. But it's not the most deep game, and I think Capcom really missed out on an opportunity to kind of double down this formula and create a really great franchise.
Agreed. Yeah, I actually agree with that 100%. So, dude, fuck yeah, this was fun. It was great to meet you, and thank you for turning me on to this game. If people want to see what you're saying in the world of the internet, in the world of the internet these days, where can they find you? Because you're kind of a big deal.
You can throw me a follow on Twitter at the Big Deal DB. I'm not too terribly active. I do tweet on occasion, but more than likely I'll just react and probably retweet something that you did. So throw me a follow. You'll probably get one back.
Fuck yeah. I love it. Dude, great to meet you. Thank you for turning me on to this game. Fuck yeah. I'm a fan. I like this. I suck at it, but I love this stupid game. Thanks for doing this, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So as I'm sure I said during the infamous intro and during my discussion with the Big Deal, if you haven't figured it out by now, we are talking Saturday Night Slam Masters. And we heard why the Big Deal likes this game. Now it's time for, and if you're wondering if Angry Adam's going to show up, I have yet to decide. He might not. But joining me this week via the blank phone to talk Saturday Night Slam Masters is my go-to fighting game guest. One of the biggest wrestling guys I know. It's a good dude. It's you all know him. It's Mr. Mike the Ref. Mike, how's it going, buddy?
I'm trying to get a little bit of Pepsi AC in me after playing this game a little bit, but I'm doing okay.
I haven't heard of Pepsi AC dropping forever. Wow, that's
well. This game did give me a little bit of heartburn as we were trying to play it here, but I'm doing good. A lot of good fighting games coming out, a lot of good wrestling games going on right now, and I'm just getting fired up. Like I got a chance to play this on the weekend, just bringing back memories. Like, I know you were talking earlier about the Big Deal, and he said he played it growing up. Yep. This was the game for me, Saturday Night Slam Masters. This was the game that I got to play on the side in the arcades while I was waiting to play Street Fighter 2.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny because that's exactly what Deal said, that he was like, this was basically there's people lined up at the Street Fighter 2 cabinet. I'll put my quarter over there and I'll go play this while I'm waiting. And that's funny because I wanted to ask you, like, I never played this until this past, 10 days or so. I honestly don't think I'd ever heard of this game. And I was super excited for it because I thought when Big Deal sponsored this episode like 6 months ago. And I thought like, oh, fucking A, a wrestling game that I missed on. Like, I love wrestling games. This is going to be dope. Then when I finally started playing it, I was like, wait a minute. This isn't a wrestling. This is a fighting game with the wrestling game costume on. But the more I played it, the more I was like, if I don't like fighting games, I think everybody knows that. I'm just lost. I don't get them. If I was going to get into a fighting game, I feel like this would be the one because there's really not a lot of moves in it, which I like. And I just thought it actually does a fairly reasonably good job of bringing the wrestling world into a fighting game. Like, there's pins and the ring and weapons, and I've played worse. But I wanted to,
absolutely. There are tons of worse games than this.
Oh, totally. But I wanted to ask you, so you just said you saw this in the arcades back in is that, so I've never played this before. I played it on the Xbox as part of the Capcom arcade collection, or whatever it's called. But you played this as a young ref?
Yes, absolutely. As a young referee, little pool hall that we had a Street Fighter 2 cabinet, which got many of my quarters, and this one got quite a few. I wouldn't say as many because this game can get uber frustrating very quickly, depending on how cheap you want to get in the game.
Yeah.
There's also, like there is some cheapness here, but best way I can think of this game right now, and I warned Adam before we got on here that I was going to be pissing off a lot of folks here. And here, let me just throw out number one right now. This game right here is the Zelda 2 of the Capcom fighting franchises. I think that's the best way to explain this game.
I like it. I love Zelda 2. I love. Wait, let me take that back. I like I would have a one-nighter with Zelda. I don't love Zelda 2, but I like what Zelda 2 is trying to do. It's weird.
Zelda 2 is completely different from everything else. And by the way, here's where I really piss people off. I feel that the Capcom fighting tree is more complex, and it's got the Charlie Day seal of approval here of how it's branched out and what kind of family it is compared to the Zelda tree.
Yeah, so
this here has a little bit of Final Fight. This has a little bit of Street Fighter. There's even a tiny bit of Rival Schools, I do believe, in the closing credits. I know there's a lot of games saying here, but
because the thing is I don't know, I can't speak for everybody else, but when I think of Capcom, I think of Mega Man, right? But I think the big three when people think of and I know there's lots of franchises, so don't yell at me if you think of something else. I'm willing to bet you 75% of Capcom fans, when you ask them what franchise you think of when you think of Capcom, they think of Mega Man, they think of Street Fighter, they think of Resident Evil. I think those are there's others, but those are the Mega Man, or those are the Mario, Zelda, Pokemon of Capcom.
I would honestly believe that Mega Man would easily be the number one. That would be the Mario.
Yeah,
Street Fighter very well could be the Zelda of the group.
I feel like Resident Evil's become so prominent lately, but regardless, those are their big franchises.
It's an either or kind of thing for the number 2 spot. So
yeah, and I just Big Deal got into it just a little bit too, but I'm a little shocked. Okay, there's two things. One, I'm shocked that Capcom does fighting games that aren't related to Street Fighter with how big Street Fighter is. But then I'm even more shocked that when they do spin off and try to do other fighting games like this one, they somehow tie them all. It's like some weird ass semi Marvel Cinematic Universe shit going on. And it's ambitious. It's ambitious, but I also find it weird because when's the last time Capcom did anything Saturday Night Slam Masters? This seems like it was a one and done.
They never went back to this, and this was basically one of their first travels into sort of a wrestling genre in terms of fighting games. It was very early in the career. Capcom, this was the time where Capcom was throwing out fighting games I don't know which way we want to put this here. Toronto Maple Leaf players are missing shots of the net for any of our NHL players, NHL fans here.
I would imagine in arcades that especially during the 90s, fighting games had to be the biggest money makers.
Well, here's the best way to explain it. Now we're in 2023 right now. The average fighting game takes about 4 years to create. A typical fighting game in 94 was getting maybe 3 months of development, 6 months of development. There was not much time to put these together. They were literally spitting them out all over the place. I know there's a bunch on the Capcom Arcade Collection Volume 2. That's the one where we both did our playthroughs on this here.
Yeah.
But there's the Capcom Fighting Collection that just got re-released here with 6 or 7 games. And just like this game, there's an American version and a Japanese version, and they are, while the gameplay is similar, the characters are renamed. The stories in the background are all over the place.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask you, I wanted to get into that a little bit because I was playing the game and I'm having fun. And then when I'm getting ready to record this episode, I usually have a Wikipedia page or something up on my computer. I always plug that we don't do homework on this show, but I like to, at least so I don't say anything too stupid. I got a little bit of information in front of me, but then I realized these names aren't the ones that I played at all. So they definitely changed everything.
They literally changed everybody's name in this game except for Mike Hagar.
Which is such I don't know if it's weird or not. I think it's a little weird, but I guess I don't know. Maybe it's a translation thing. I don't fucking know.
The one thing about it, the main character in here, Biff Slamkovich, he is supposed to be a Russian being trained under Mike Hagar. But in the Japanese version, he is supposed to be being trained under Mike Hagar and Gunlock is supposed to be sort of like the Ryu Ken dynamic with those two.
Yeah.
But with Biff here, they actually brought him up as a descendant of Zangief in the American version in his story.
And Zangief is
Zangief's the big bulky Russian guy that looks like he's got muscles on top of muscles in the game.
Yes.
So basically, he's supposed to. This is supposed to be the USA versus America, and this is 1994. So
right. No, which like, dude, I love that. Like in the old games, they could get away with like blatant stereotypes and like look no further than fucking Soda Popinski. We all know the truth about what Soda Popinski's drinking.
Oh, yeah.
We all I hate that son of a bitch. I love I like to get into like the game. Like I gotta say, my the first big pro to this game to me was just, and I know that it's an arcade game, so of course it's gonna look nice, but I gotta tell you, dude, like playing this game and just like, you know, in 10-minute intervals till I got pissed off at how much I was losing and I quit. This game is eye candy. Like I love the way it looks. I love the way all the wrestlers look. I love the ring. I love the background, the crowd. I'm like, this looks better than like the WWF games that were on the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. It looks really good.
This game here is basically a nod to all the 90s Capcom games. Always had this artistic style to them.
Yeah, they did.
Like if you look at Final Fight and games like that where you see the similar characters involved, it's very similar in types of design of characters and whatnot.
Yeah,
and they actually had a Japanese manga artist doing up the concepts for this. So
no, they look great.
They look fantastic.
Yeah, I like, even when I would boot it up on my Xbox and it'd be here on my monitor, and then maybe I'd like, you know, just be answering an email or looking at my phone for a minute or whatever before I'd start, and then I'd look up and it. And again, I know it is, like, I feel so stupid being like, it's like an arcade game when it fucking is an arcade game. But like, you know, when you're in the arcade and you walk by and you see the demo of the computer playing against each other, I love just like, I don't stand there like an idiot staring at them for 20 minutes, but I love watching those because I love the way arcade games look. And I'm watching this on my monitor and I'm like, damn it all, this looks tight. Like it looks so crisp, and it's not even just the bright colors, but the way they differentiate between the size. And this is something Big Deal and I were talking about a little bit. Like you played WWF Raw or WWF Royal Rumble on the Genesis or the Super Nintendo, and those games were great. But outside of like Yokozuna, they were all just the same palette, and they would just swap the colors and the hair and stuff. But like you look at this, and like the guy I liked playing is Stingray the most, the Lucha Libre guy, because he was small and fast and he could jump around. But then you put him in the ring with somebody like Greater, the blatant Vader ripoff.
Yeah.
And night and day, like the size difference between them. And that just, I know it's a little thing that we all take like it's normal in 2023, but that was a big deal back then. They look so like, and I understand that in Street Fighter, if you took, I don't know, one of the little characters and put him up against the big green guy, like, yeah, they look different in size. That wasn't a normal thing in wrestling games back then. And I know this is only half of a wrestling game, but it counts because I want to show it credit. Dude, it's so dope the way they differ. And like some of the big guys jump small, whereas the little guys jump super high and run around. And I love the way they all felt and looked so different from each other. I really sincerely just thought it was awesome.
The best thing about 1990s Capcom is the fact that they had a very high attention to detail on a lot of things, not just the gameplay, not just the storylines of it, but the graphics had to be to scale. You had to have it very realistic. You couldn't like you'd have your smaller guys. They would be able to pull off some leverage maneuvers on some of the bigger guys, but when it came to straight up power, typically that wouldn't be able to happen.
Yeah.
And that was one of the exciting things on here. And like you got that oversized Titanic Tim that if you put him up against Stingray there, you can almost see that there's two Stingrays in Tim there, right? In terms of height.
Yeah.
It's really noticeable. And every character brings their certain characteristics out that just drive it to make it look that much better. Cause you got, like for example, Tim, when he has a little leg sweep that he does around the ring, you got to make sure that you're able to either get over that or get back quite a bit, or else you're going to get hit.
Now the thing that I found, and again, this could 100% just be Adam get good. And you're right. I'm not like, I cannot stress this enough. For anyone that's never seen me play a fighting game, you don't understand just how bad I am. Like, I'm really, really fucking bad. So maybe this is just a side effect of how bad I am. But the one thing I found was playing as some of the small guys, like a Stingray, and how quick he was. Dude, some of these guys, their reach is like half the ring. I was like, I could not get near them and touch them. I could not get near them. But maybe I'm just not good.
No, that was just the one thing about these games, as they are input reading mothers, to say the least. Especially when you play it against the computer. It will read exactly what you're punching, and one frame before you do it, it will do something to counter it.
It's insane, man.
Like,
it was. You said it. You texted me and said you found it tough.
I was playing it on like the normal. Like there's 5 levels. You can set it up in the on the Xbox here, and I went level 3, and I ended up going 3 matches, and all of a sudden I couldn't do anything against it. And then once you get, I think I made it to like stage 6 or 7. I didn't get to Calgary in the finals, so
yeah. Which, by the way, how dope is it that the finals are in Calgary? That's pretty awesome.
It is absolutely amazing. Like, they were showing a lot of the territories that a lot of people didn't realize there was a lot of wrestling in all of them here.
Yeah,
and the funny thing is that this Crash that they were talking about in there is an actual promotion in Mexico.
Oh, is that right? Oh, that's
Crash
sick.
Wrestling is one. It's sort of like the second brand, or it's the second or third brand down in Mexico. But yes, it is an actual promotion in Mexico. So,
oh, that's sick. I didn't know that. Yeah, I loved that. And then and we can get into the. So before, I'd really like to talk to you about the controls and stuff and how this plays. But before we get there, I just want to ask you. I already explained a big deal. Like, my go-to was Stingray, and then when I got sick of getting beat up as Stingray, sometimes I'd play as Oni, the one with the long pink hair with the devil horns, because again, really fast. And then when I was sick of getting beat up, I'd swap over to Grader, primarily just because I was a huge fan of Vader as a kid, and he looks like Vader. So I just want to ask you, mains, or did you play as everybody? Everybody has a main, right?
My typical main was probably the guy that got the biggest spin-off out of this game is the guy that I used for my playthrough, was Mike Hager. Because he basically got the biggest push out of this, because from here, this directly led into the Final Fight series.
Right.
Because every time he wins, he has his little daughter come out in the ring and celebrate with him.
Yes.
That's the daughter that gets kidnapped in Final Fight.
Oh.
That they have to go after. So
I love it. Plus, he's got that mustache.
Oh, absolutely.
That mustache is legendary.
Exactly.
But no, okay. And then
if I didn't play him, I would go with Biff, of course, because you got to go with the main character, because usually you can get the main story out of that, right?
Right. And that's another detail that I thought was very, like, again, if you've not played it, we're getting into the controls, I promise. But if you've not played it, it's a fighting game. It's you have the health bar at the top, and you're beating on each other. And the only difference was they add this like little bit of a wrestling tie-in. And admittedly, the first couple of games I played, I'm like, this is just a stupid gimmick to make it feel like a wrestling game. Because, like, you still have to beat each other down till basically their health is empty. But then instead of just winning the fight when they're beat up, you actually have to pin them afterwards. But they can't kick out if they have no health left. And you can, like, grab somebody and whip them off the ropes and do moves. And I was like, but the more I played it, the more I was like, man, that is kind of like, it is, because the thing about fighting games and like Street Fighter, Killer Instinct, Mortal Kombat, insert your favorite fighting game here, is I suck. And so I know that health meter is going to get depleted to 0, and then I'm going to get beat up, and I lose. But in this game, even when my health is beat down to 0, if I can just run around like a chicken shit and throw the occasional kick and not get pinned, I'm not dead. I don't win, but I can still win. And then there's the little touches, like you can get weapons and use them. You can get counted out. The way that each wrestler does their little entrance off the top of each fight and come out from the other sides of the ring and everything. I went from thinking like, dude, all they did was take a fighting game and put a wrestling skin on top so they could sell it to wrestling fans. This is bullshit. And by the time I played it for a little while, I was like, no, they actually did a pretty respectable, reasonable job of attempting at least to combine two genres here. It's not. It's more wrestling game than it appears.
Well,
In
the
my
other thing
opinion.
about this game that sort of it goes apropos to the wrestling style. This is one of the first quote unquote fighting games that actually you didn't have to press a button to make it go 3D. Like all you were doing is going up and down, right? But in a typical fighting game, it's just 2D. You go forward and back.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first attempts to actually have you going up and down and have the bar. And I think this is what the difference is between this and a typical wrestling game is the fact that there's a special control for the finishers. This is one of the first games that had that.
Yeah.
Like you had your special move that you do a certain combination with your joystick and the two buttons that were there. Because this realistically is only a 2-button game.
Yeah.
I know that on the Capcom Fighting or the arcade collection, they had the option for, I believe it was 4 buttons total. I think in the arcade there was only 2 buttons. It was literally just punch and jump.
Right. And this, I know when I was playing it, I think there was there was 2 different attack buttons that both did the same attacks, but one was supposed to be faster than the other one or fucking something like that.
You could program that button to actually repeat the button press faster.
Oh, okay.
It's basically like your homemade turbo.
Right. Now, so, okay. All right. So then you know what? I need a drink of water. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to let a sponsor and possibly do a thing so we can keep the bills on. And then I want to get into the controls and I want to get into just who this game is for. And we'll do all that in just a second. I'm going to drink some water. We're going to take a quick break here for a word. We'll be right back after this, as a wrestling commentator would say. Okay. So, Mike, I got to ask you, I know you're a big fighting game guy. I love wrestling games. I know you love wrestling games as well.
Absolutely.
It's not to say that this is bad, but if you're a fighting and I'm honestly curious, if you're a fighting purist, I feel like this is not the deepest fighting game ever. There's minimal moves. You got to put the pin in afterwards. If you're someone that just loves wrestling games, and I'm telling all of you right now, and I'm not saying this is a bad game, but if you're like, I play every wrestling game, I don't really like fighting games. Would I like this? No. Don't play this for the wrestling. There are better wrestling games out there than this.
I'll actually argue with you on that one there, because
all right,
I'm not going to say it's the best game in the world. Far from it. Let's not even go there. But the fact that this game here reminds me a lot about what you would do with not WrestleFest, but the earlier version WWF Superstars, where there was either a punch button or a run button. And it was just the same concept. The only difference in this game compared to that game is the branding, of course, and the fact that in this game you actually have special moves you can pull out. Whether you have to do a joystick combination or you just have to rapidly tap on your button.
I'll give you that. But if I was looking to play a wrestling game and I was looking to play a wrestling game from this, just wrestling, we're not worried about the fighting. I'm like, dude, there's WWF Raw, there's WWF Royal Rumble. If you want to go to the arcade, I personally like WrestleFest better than this.
Oh, absolutely.
That's me. So I'm just saying that I don't know if I would this would not be my first. And that's where I'm I wonder if maybe, and I'm completely spitballing, but it makes me wonder if that's maybe part of the reason we haven't seen more Saturday Night Slam Masters is if there's not enough meat on the wrestling bone for it to be a wrestling game for wrestling fans. And I feel like if you want to play fighting, like you said, this was the game you played waiting for Street Fighter. I feel like it's kind of a half and half. And I don't know if I'm not dissing it. I actually quite enjoyed it, but is there enough there to really hook one pool or the other pool? Do you know what I mean? It's like double dipping kind of.
The best way I can explain this, and once again, I'll dive back into the old Zelda box here. You know, the games like Minish Cap and Spirit Tracks, they sort of they're games in the storyline.
Yeah.
But they're just there to tie some loose ends together and try to get you from game A to game C kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's this sell another 3 million fucking copies because it's Zelda. But yes, I do. Yes, I do know what you mean. Yes.
But the main point of those games is just basically, if you put them in the canonical timeline here, there's a spot for them where they can fit in between 2 games and it makes sort of sense. Right. Even a game like the Wind Waker there, that it gets you in between that and your favorite game in the world, Ocarina of Tim and
Don't do it.
whatnot.
Oh, fuck.
I said it the way
Ocarina.
you do, so I tried
Yeah,
to
you did. You said
soften
it
the
right.
blow a bit.
Ocarina of Tim. You said it right. But no, that's
that's where this game is to me. Like if you're, this is where I was going to talk to the big deal one-on-one here. My PS, I got to throw a PSA out here for a quick second here. To the big deal, I have been assigned the task of trying to get Adam to enjoy fighting games. So as I've been on this show, I have covered the Toughest Killer Instinct, the Mortal Kombat movie, which good but cheesy nonetheless, and now this game. This is not how to get Adam excited about fighting games.
It's no, go ahead. I was gonna say, like, to be like, the truth is, like, I'll never. There is no fucking right way.
No, there is going to be a way here. We just gotta. This game here, it has a lot of pluses to it, and like I said, when I played it as a kid, like I would have been 16 years old in the arcades playing this while it came out new.
Yeah,
and when I was playing it's great for a way to take your brain off things and just mash a few buttons. And once in a while, if you knew the moves, because if you look in the manual, they actually do give you all the moves that the wrestlers do.
Yeah.
In terms of your special moves. If you know how to do those, then you can piece things together and it works really well.
Yeah.
But the controls are really tight though.
Yeah, that said though, like so when I first started playing it, I liked how simple, like if you've never played this game, like you jump, you kick, you punch, you run off the ropes. When you get close to your opponent, if you hit attack, you'll grab them instead. And then you have a couple of different grapple, and the grapple moves look pretty dope. Like there's some pretty cool moves. And at first I was like, oh, that's sick. There's like moves that are easy to do and stuff. But then the more I get, and this is where I'm like, it's, I don't know about you, but like, and maybe this is just because I don't love fighting. I get bored very quickly of fighting games, in addition to the fact that I suck. And so maybe that was part of my problem. But I was like, I actually wish there was a little more meat on the bone as far as the move set goes in this game. Like it is very, very basic. At least it seems it to me, very minimal.
Compared to the other fighting games that were out at this time, yes, it is very basic. But I think they were trying to use not only the 3D shifting of moving back and forth in a wrestling ring, as well as just a different format to let it be a little bit more tamer.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just, and listen, like, dude, I love WWF Royal Rumble and WWF Raw, but like, this game is deeper than them as far as the moves go, because those ones you tie up and then you just mash a button and hope you fill the little meter. Like they're I get it, but I was playing it and I was like, man, I really wish there was just a little bit more almost to it. And then that's not even to get in to the fact that, like, we were just saying, this game is fucking, I get that it's an arcade game, and arcade games are designed to take kids' quarters and to take their tokens. And boy, they did a great job of that, because again, I turned it down to difficulty 1 and couldn't get past the 4th match in the singles. This game will massacre you. I played Mortal Kombat 2 quite a bit as a kid because I owned it on my Super Nintendo, and I remember it being hard, but I don't remember it being this hard. Not even close.
Yeah, like, to me, I played it on level 3, like I said, and I got maybe around to the 6th level. I didn't get all the way around to finishing it on this last run that I did.
Yeah.
It is meant to be hard as balls, and it is hard as balls.
It is fucking tough.
And the thing is, when it came to these 90s games, and I'll say it once again, input reading mothers.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Input reading to no end.
Now, one thing I really like about this game is the tag team mode. And I think I talked about this with the big deal, but like, I don't like the fact that it's not actually a tag team. Like, it's 2-on-2. It's not a tag team mode. It's just a 2-on-2 fight. But what I love about it is that all 4 of you are in the ring at once, and you have to pin or submit both members of the other team to win. And I got way further in that mode than I did the single player mode, because my computer partner could carry me. And the amount of times that I was beat up and then my computer partner saved me from getting pinned and stuff. I think playing it with your friends at the arcade, that would have been the way to play. I don't know about you. I actually found that mode substantially more entertaining than the one-on-one mode. myself.
I did. And actually, this is similar to what they do in Mexico with their trios matches. Because if you have down there, typically, and of course, there's always differences, but you always have your 3-on-3 matches, and there's a supposed captain for each team.
Yeah.
And on your in the game here, you're the captain.
Right.
What you have to do is either pin everybody else on the other team or pin their captain.
Oh, I never knew that. I thought we had to pin
fall.
both. Oh, I thought we had to pin
No,
both.
in this game here, you do have to pin both.
Oh,
But
okay.
if you get pinned and your partner doesn't, like if your partner gets pinned, you still keep going yourself.
Yeah.
But if you get pinned, you're automatically out.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I did notice that, but I assumed it was just like, oh, that's just their cheap way to get another quarter out of you. Like that was what I assumed it was. Was they were like,
But
oh, you lost.
It's sort of a variation off the Mexican luchador rules for trios. So
Oh, I loved it. I thought that was such a great,
I
a
love
great
the
little
concept.
addition to it.
I just wish if they would have just done a battle royal, they could have just done 4 people. But having 4 people like a 4 corners match, you're saying at this time it really wasn't heard of in wrestling.
Yeah.
To be frank, it
you're
was
right.
either tag teams or singles, or the most extravagant they had was the Royal Rumble or Survivor Series.
Yeah. I mean, when I think back to like watching wrestling as a kid, the first 4-way, sorry to go on a wrestling rant, everybody, but like the first wrestling, like pro wrestling 4-way match I can think of was the, was it 96's Rumble where they had the big convoluted finish and they had to redo it. And it was like Austin, Hart, Taker, Vader.
Yeah, that would have been 97, I do believe. But the actual first fatal 4-way match was in 97, where they actually had to explain all the rules, and it was actually a tag team match. And it actually, sorry, once again, I would apologize for going on a rant about wrestling, but we're covering a wrestling game for Pete's sake. But the actual finish to the match was one tag team partner covering the other to get the victory.
That's funny.
The New Age Outlaws did that.
The New Age Outlaws. I used to like that when I was a kid. I think everybody at one point liked the New Age Outlaws.
But here's a funny thing about this game here. Sorry, bringing it back to the game here.
Bring it back to the game, yeah. One
thing that I found really funny is if you get the Genesis version of this game, this mode isn't even there. This 4-player mode.
Yeah, we got into that a little bit with Deal because he had it on Genesis and he was talking about how it had more playable characters or something, but it didn't have the fatal the Super Nintendo one you could use the multi-tap for any. I didn't know a single kid. Like I could barely get my parents to get me a second controller, much less a fucking multi-tap and 4 controllers. But I'm sure there were some rich kids out there somewhere that had it.
Well, the thing is, you get in this game, you could get for the Genesis version, you would get the 2 main characters, the 2 bosses that you could play. And as well, there was a Japanese deathmatch version.
Yes,
where that's basically a hardcore match.
Yeah, that's I would have preferred that over stupid 4-way. But I mean, whatever.
I think they didn't. I don't think they had the processing power in the Genesis that they did in the Super Nintendo. So
it had blast processing, Mike. It had blast processing.
Yeah, that's just like the Leafs saying that they have talent.
I know the fucking blast processing is the greatest fucking marketing thing in the world. I love it. Well, what is blast processing? We don't know, but we have it. So shut up. Okay, so we talked about the controls. We talked about the way the wrestlers look, how awesome the whole concept of this game is. So again, I don't really think there's much else to add as far as the controls go. I do like, I say, the moves look cool. It's got a little bit of the weight detection to it, which is rad. I like that you could use weapons. I found the weapons incredibly difficult to use, but I like the fact that they were there. And I like that you could fight outside of the ring, although I will say they count fast. Like, these referees are not there to put on a show. These referees are there to fuck you.
But you had a 20 count, not 10, right?
Yes, but still though, it was like they were not. It wasn't like a 1, 2. Come on, get back in the ring, guys. I will count you 3. It was like a 1, 2, 3. 4. You better get the fuck in. 7, 8, 9. I was like, all right, fuck me.
Well, the thing about that is you only got 3 minutes.
Yeah, and you're right. I never once had a draw, like the 3-minute thing, but that was only because I'm not good enough to survive for 3 minutes. Did you
So
ever have a match go the full the distance?
Actually, I did a playthrough here this last week, and I actually did go the distance. And I read the directions wrong. I read the rules wrong of the game. There's, according to what it says in the Capcom guide, that there's supposed to be a 1 minute overtime. So as the clock's getting to 5 seconds, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just position myself, get ready for overtime. No, that overtime only happens if your meter's even.
Like if
When
you
you
have the
count
same
to
amount of
zero,
health left?
If we have the same amount of health left, they'll put a minute up on the clock.
Oh.
But if he has more health than you, I'm sorry, game over, you lose.
Yeah. Well,
And I'm
that's
like,
yeah. That's another. We need to get more quarters. Like we don't want
take
kids
my
to play
quarters.
longer. Yeah, exactly. Oh fuck, that brought up something else that I wanted to ask you about, and I can't remember what it was. The timer. Oh, with the controls too. One thing I really liked was not all of them. Again, my fighting game experience is minimal, but I know in some fighting games to jump you just push up, and I love that this game has a jump button. I much prefer that to just pushing up. But this game also, unless I just couldn't find it, doesn't have like a block. There's no block button.
No, there's no blocking. That was the most frustrating part of the game here. The fact that there was no real way to block. There was no real way to get any reversals.
Yeah, it said if you mash buttons, you'd reverse, but I don't think I ever got one.
Yeah, you really got to mash hard. And
Yeah.
I was even using a fighting stick for this playthrough, and I still couldn't get much for reversals there, just because you got to get like 30 presses in before he gets his move off, and that never happens.
No, dude, the amount of times where I was I didn't even realize I had grappled, because grappling is the same as the attack button. It's just if you're closer to an opponent, you'll grapple them. And so practically every time I grappled, I just threw them off the ropes because I was just mashing the attack button. And it turned out I grappled them and then whipped them off I was like, oh, fuck. All right. I didn't like, I don't know what was going on because it's so fast moving. But at the same time, on that note, it was very, and again, I played like an Xbox port, so maybe it's different, but I was shocked at just how well it ran. There was no slowdown. There was no lag. It didn't feel jittery or anything. Like it feels like a very polished game.
Well, realistically, there wasn't much to this game, really, if you think about it. So the fact that's the one thing about games like this where you, like this is where you take advantage over this game over a beat 'em up. Because the beat 'em up, you got to have the background always moving.
Yeah. And then numerous enemies running around.
And this one, you didn't have that. So
yeah.
That's why I was considering it more a beat 'em up than a fighting game, because you do have one special move in there, but at the same time, the majority of what you're doing in there is literally just punching the crap out of them until you get close enough to try and grapple them.
Yeah. No, it was very, agreed. I agree.
Like I'm looking at Final Fight, I'm looking at Double Dragon, and I'm like, they're a lot similar to that game than they are to any big wrestling game in some ways. So
totally. Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, it's just a very, like I felt, okay. So like when Big Deal originally picked this game, I looked at it and I was like, fucking A, a wrestling game? I love wrestling games. And then when I started playing it, I was like, wait a minute, this is a fighting game. And then the more I played it, I was like, well, this is like kind of a fighting game. But then it's like, it is kind of a wrestling game, but then it is kind of a beat 'em up. And I'm like, do you know what you are, Saturday Night Slam Masters? And every time I wondered that, it would answer me like, yes, we know exactly what we are. We're the game that's going to make you fucking rage quit every time you play it. Because I could never get more than 3 or 4 fights in before I just start. And dude, I love that when you lose, you can swap wrestlers, which is outstanding. Every game ever should have that. But I would swap wrestlers, and then it wouldn't matter. I would just get beat with somebody else. Like there was no. This is the wrestler you need to win. I just could not win. It was just I just sucked.
That is a very common fighting game trait. As soon as you put your quarter in, you can pick whoever you want. Plus, even in the Final Fight series, once you put your quarter in, you actually can flip things over. Like even if you look at a game like Alien versus Predator. If you were playing that, you were able to switch characters as soon as you put your quarter in.
See,
even Metal Slug did something like that too.
It drives me like I know that the Turtles arcade games you can, but a lot of the Turtles console games, like that's why I'm going way off the rails here, but that's why Turtles 3 is so much better than Turtles 2 on the NES, because when you die, you can switch turtles. And I'm like, in every game ever, you should be able to anyways. I digress. I'm going way off the map here.
Oh no, dude,
I could rant about it forever.
we could rant about things, a lot of things in this game, this genre. I know you got a lot more rants against fighting games than I do, but
No, but I mean, like, oh, that's where I was gonna go. Like, as we kind of start to bring the plane in for the landing here, when I started playing this, I became concerned, and I told Big Deal, I was like, dude, I don't want this episode to suck for you, but I really just don't. I don't know fighting games. Like, it's not even. I know people ask me for them, and I hear you. The people that are like, you're gonna cover some Tekken, you're gonna cover some Soul. Like, I don't. I have nothing to bring to a conversation about a fighting game. Like, I just don't. And that's what I was worried about with this episode. But then the more I played this game, I was like, dude, I think I can voice an opinion on this, because I feel like this is like the fighting game that was like, hey, Adam, we know you suck. Here's some basic controls. They look like wrestlers. You know what this is, Mike? This feels like the fighting game equivalent of like them jangling their keys in front of my face to make me like calm down and be like, oh, I'll play with this one. But it kind of worked. Am I ever going to play it again? I don't know. Maybe once in a while for kicks till I lose the third fight, get pissed off and rage quit again. But dude, this game has a following. I'd never heard of it until this episode. And now I kind of get why. It's certainly not without its charm. I have played substantially worse fighting games than Saturday Night Slam Masters.
Oh God, yes. Like I've played some. I believe the correct word is jank, because there are a lot of janking fighting games, especially in this genre, or in this time frame. Sorry. During that early '90s, mid '90s phrase there, everybody was pumping out a fighting game wherever they could because they were easy quarter mashers.
They ate quarters, man. They ate quarters. No question. Dude, like, if you have a Pac-Man cabinet, I know that Pac-Man wasn't so relevant in the 90s. I'm an old boomer, eat me. But like, you could put a quarter in and play for 20 minutes if you're good. Whereas like one of these, you put a quarter in, you have a match, you lost, put another quarter in. I get it. I understand the business model. And I always do this on this show. When I see that a game in my opinion, got a little bit of love in TLC when it was developed from that era, I'll make sure to throw them an extra little tip of my backwards cap, because that stands up 25, 30 years later when people are playing it. And this is one where, is it Street Fighter 2? No, but it's not shit. It's good for Capcom. It's a decent little game here. Like, they didn't mail it in. I was impressed.
My feeling about this game was it was like a gateway drug in between Street Fighter and Final Fight, because Final Fight was after this. Timeline wise, in Japan it was before this, or actually both ways it was before this, but Mike Hager was not mayor yet if you're in the Japanese version, or he was a former mayor in the post one. But either way, this game here, to me, it feels like we're getting you ready for a Final Fight and everything that's going to be involved in that. But here's a little side story of Street Fighter 2.
Right.
Like, Gunlock is supposed to be the brother of Guile in many rumors, and confirmed in the Street Fighter movie, which you will watch eventually.
Jean-Claude Van Damme. I fucking hear about it all the time.
Yes, I know. I'm surprised I don't bring it up myself more. But then, of course, you got your two main characters, Biff and Biff, who is supposed to be trained by Zangief, of course. And there's a lot of correlations between the two franchises here. And like I said, it's like a Charlie Day conspiracy. Let's put everything together here and Final Fight is one of the offroot branches of the Street Fighter franchise in that third cousin twice removed kind of way.
Right. So what I love, man, like I would consider, I don't know, I don't think I would sit here and definitively say that Capcom is my favorite third party developer, because I don't know if they are, but they are certainly on the short list. Like, every time, again, like I don't play all their franchises, but every time they drop a new Mega Man, every time we drop a new Resident Evil, like if Capcom's doing a showcase, I'm like, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna see what they're doing. I have a lot of time for Capcom, and there's a reason that they've lasted as long as they have, when so many studios, it feels like studios pop up, disappear, like, shut down all the time. Tip of my cap to Capcom. They've been around. There's a reason that they've been around as long as they have. They're
Well,
not a shit studio.
Think of it this way. You name another third-party company that comes up with this quality of franchises on such different scales.
Yeah.
You got your horror in Resident Evil. You got your action in Mega Man. You got your fighting and beat 'em ups in the Street Fighter universe.
Yeah. No question.
I can't see anybody being that diverse except maybe Nintendo.
Yeah.
Nintendo themselves with like Zelda and Mario and maybe Donkey Kong in that case.
Yeah. 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 Because the rest of the franchises are dead. F-Zero.
Yeah,
No, agreed. Yeah. They, I got a lot of love for Capcom. Man, I think we've, you got anything left? I feel like I've touched all the bases I wanted to touch. I've touched them all, Joe. I think I'm good.
We talked about the finals being in Calgary, like they always should be in Alberta.
Yes,
like they mean.
The game. Hey, I heard that if you put in the Konami code during a final match in Calgary, Bret Hart will come out and stand behind the ring and complain about how fake the wrestling looks and to tell you all that he had the best match that night because he's a bitch and I hate him. Anyway, continue. Sorry, got it in there. Team HBK, baby. Go ahead.
We all have the democratic right to be wrong, Adam. That's
Brett
all I'm
screwed
going to say
Brett,
right
Mike.
there.
Brett screwed Brett.
But one thing I will say is there was a sequel to this actually. There were actually 2 sequels to this game. They didn't do half as well as this one did, but all in all, I would say that this game here, Saturday Night Slam Masters, it's a game that if you want to check out the nostalgia for the time and you want to understand how they developed the Final Fight series and how they created a lot of the 3D fighting aspects that we do start seeing now.
Yeah.
This is definitely a game worth checking out. Is it a game to check out for just because you enjoy fighting games? This would not be Daddy's first fighting game.
No.
But I would say this is definitely worth checking out if you're familiar with the basics on fighting games itself.
It's a novelty. It's like I wouldn't go out and drop, I have no idea what a Super Nintendo or Genesis cart for Saturday Night Slam Masters is worth these days. I wouldn't go out and drop $100 on this cart unless you grew up with it and you love this game or anything. But it's event. You can get the Capcom Arcade collection for free, and then it's like $3 to download this and play it. And it's fun. It's a cool little. I got time. I got time for Saturday Night Slam Masters. It was fun.
For anybody on here who enjoys classic Capcom games, the Capcom Arcade collection is definitely worth checking out. If you're a fighting game fan, you get the Capcom Fighting Collection as a separate disc that was released earlier this year. Yes, I'm still a physical person for games. But if you're just looking for a lot of Capcom games, like even 1943 or anything like that, I would highly recommend download the Capcom Arcades, both Volume 1 and Volume 2. They're free to download, and they also have an Invincibility free add-on that you can get that you basically can play any of those games without getting hit if you really want to just try it all the way to the end.
Yeah, they're very I was impressed. Like I'd never even looked at touching it until I was getting ready for this episode and downloaded it for Saturday Night Slam Masters, and I was impressed at the quality of that collection. Like that is not a half-assed collection at all. It's well done.
No, absolutely, it's one of the best.
We got to score this thing. And I was telling you before we started, Big Deal came up with one of the best scoring systems we've ever had. 52,400 miles is the total travel for one of these wrestlers to go through the game, I think twice, to win the title and then defend the title. So that's our scoring system. One of the best we've ever had. Mike, you're the guest. You have first dibs. Out of 52,400, what are you scoring Saturday Night Slam Masters, my friend?
I'm gonna go, and I've been thinking about this for pretty much an hour and a half right now, trying to figure this out. I'm probably gonna go with, let's go 42,469.
Nice. I would have been canceled if I didn't drop it nice at the end of that. So
I was gonna say the first half 42 is roughly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, the last part, just I had to throw that in there.
Of course. I was in that like 42 range myself, just because it makes for bad radio when we agree. So I'm going to go 39,999 because I do like it. I thought it was a fun little game, but I'm also like, again, and I mean it, like, I'm like, who, if you want to play fighting games, there's better ones. If you want to play wrestling games, there's better ones. I'm like, it's a fun game, but I feel like it's a jack of many trades, not all, but a jack of many trades, master of none. But it's good at everything it does. It's a fun game. That's, at the end of the day, that's what matters. Is a game fun? Yes, it was fun. That's what matters. It's a fun little game.
I think the only time that you're actually going to get down and play this is either A, for the nostalgia factor, or B, you want to check out an anthology on a certain character or a certain genre. Whether you want to check out the history of Hagar and play all his games through, or you want to check out Final Fight and the entire storyline there.
Yeah.
Just playing this for the one-off of just playing it, I don't know if any random casual will do that.
No, agreed. Neat game though. I like
Absolutely. It's fun. It gets addicting once you get into it, as long as you're willing to take the hits.
Yeah, I was gonna say it gets fun when you get into it until you get to about the 5th match and then realize that, like, oh, now I'm wrestling fucking I'm wrestling like the hybrid child of modern day Roman Reigns, Super Cena, and Hulkamania Hogan all wrapped into one. Like, it's you're never going over ever, but it's still fun. Mike, I know you're a busy guy, much like myself. You're always putting your jibba jabba on the internet. So if people wanted to see or experience some of said jibba jabba, where are you sending them? What are you doing?
Well, I'll give all my particulars in a second here, but I want to let you guys know that for the playthrough of this, to get ready for this podcast, I actually recorded it and I'm going to be putting it up on our Backbreaker Gaming YouTube page as this podcast gets released. So if we'll have the link in the description here, but if you want to check out what this game's all about, as I was checking it out myself, there'll be a link there as well. I am part of Backbreaker Gaming, where a bunch of us play a whole bunch of different video games. Right now, we're in a set of Zelda, Pokemon Scarlet, WWE 2K23. We're running through the GM mode right now.
I've been watching those. Actually, they're good.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And MLB The Show as well, 23. I'm actually part of a E-League here locally in Edmonton, so it's a lot of fun there as well. I also do wrestling videos on Backbreaker Video on our YouTube channel. If you want to catch me live on a stream as I try to mock Adam as best as possible, you can check me out at twitch.tv/Mike the Ref. I am on there usually 4 days a week. The flagship show is an AEW Dynamite watch along we do every Wednesday night to go along with the show, where a bunch of us we'll get into some crazy topics. We might actually talk some of the wrestling show while we're there, but it's always a fun time. And other than that, I'll make sure I don't want to go on too long because people are probably going to check out. Either that or they're going to skip it and wait for all the hear their name in the Patreon announcements, but one or the other. Yeah. But I'll have all the description and the link tree for all my socials in the description here for you guys.
Outstanding. Buddy.
And before we go, you never get put over enough. And I just want to remind everybody here that this guy is an absolute icon, a saint, a great guy. He is not paying me to say this. And the amount of work that Adam puts into his podcast, you guys have no clue. Like, I'm a content creator myself here, and I've been doing this for almost 10 years now. It is absolutely insane the amount of work that Adam's putting in here, and I am so grateful, and I know all your community is very grateful for all the work that you do.
Thanks, buddy.
And before the end of 2025, we are going to get you to play a Saturn game and a fighting game.
Fighting game, maybe. Saturn game, it'd be like when Vince brought in the NWO. That'll be me when I have to play a Saturn game. I'll kill my creation. Man, thank you for the kind words. It's going to make this a lot awkward now when I tell you you're never coming back on the show. This no.
In that case, play Saturn.
Yeah. No, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that very much, man. And thank you for all your support. And once again, thank you for taking time to swing by Remember the Game Industries to talk Saturday Night Slam Masters with me. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, absolutely grateful. Thank you. And thank you to The Big Deal for sponsoring this episode.
Damn right. Much love, Big Deal. And that's going to do it for this week's episode, The Big Deal. Thank you for being a big supporter, get it? Of the podcast with your generosity in supporting or in sponsoring this episode of the show. And dude, thank you for turning me on to just thank you for turning me on. No, thank you for turning me on to Saturday Night Slam Masters, because I don't know if I ever would have played it. I didn't really know it existed. Then I thought it was a wrestling game. Turns out it's kind of a wrestling game, kind of a fighting game. And it was cool. It's one of the more unique games that I played in my career as a gamer. I quite enjoyed it. So thank you very much, Big Deal. It was great to chat with you. You guys can find the Big Deal's socials in the description of this podcast. And Mike the Ref, thank you for coming by and talking Saturday Night Slam Masters with me as well. It's always great to have you on the show, being the referee that you are. This feels like a very fitting episode. You guys check out Mike's work. You can find his links in the description of this podcast as well. I swing by his Twitch streams semi-regularly myself and hang out in that chat. So it'd be cool to see all you kids over there. It's good times. The dude works very hard. And finally, thank you to all of you for listening to this train wreck of a podcast. Whether this was your first Remember the Game or your 248th, thank you so much. We only lasted this long because people are listening, and that's you. So thank you for the support. I appreciate it more than you know. If you didn't hate this show, maybe leave us a nice review somewhere, would you? I don't know what they accomplish, but if the other podcast hosts are going to ask for them, God damn it, I'm going to do the same thing. We've been getting some nice reviews lately, and they make me feel good about myself. So please do that. And if you want more of these, there are hundreds. I think there's about 500 archive podcasts at patreon.com/remember the game right now. Just about everything you could think of is covered over there. Subscriptions start at just $2 a month. You help keep the bills on around here. You get a ton of podcasts with a bunch of other perks. It's pretty well the best deal in the history of the universe. So check us out at patreon.com/remember the game. I'm also on Twitch at twitch.tv/member the game, not remember, member the game. No real regular schedule, just whenever I have time, but I've been playing through Gears of War over there right now, and people have been coming by pretty regularly. It's been a lot of fun. So swing by and say hi if you want to. And finally, we have a P.O. box. You can find the address at rememberthegamepodcast.com. Just send me a postcard, a letter, something little. Let me know where you're listening. I'll send you one back. We'll be friends. It's neat. I think that's it. Yeah, that'll do it. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to thank some Patreons and sign off. I appreciate y'all for listening, and I'll be back tomorrow for those Patreons with Expansion Pass, where we'll be wishing or talking about the games that we want me to use my weird abilities to will into existence. Game Patch will be going live on Friday, where we're talking about the biggest news in modern video games, and I'll be back next week with Purple Monkey Dishwasher episode 7 on Monday, where we're talking... what episode? Moaning Lisa. That's the episode Mark McHugh and I are talking about. Tuesday will be The Rambling Idiot, where I'll talk about whatever I want. Wednesday will be Remember the Game 249, where we'll be talking Advance Wars. Thursday will be Expansion Pass. Fucked if I know what that'll be about yet. And then Friday will be Game Patch again. Lots of podcasts. Thanks, everybody. Talk to y'all on the next one. You're the best. Cheers. So long. Goodbye. Remember the Game is brought to you by our Patreons. I could not puke up all the content I churn out every week without all of your support. The following people are at the senior executive vice president level or higher at patreon.com/remember the game, and as such, I am contractually obligated to say their names as quickly as possible. So in alphabetical order based on your email addresses. A huge thank you to Just a Fish, Adam Martinet, a dude named Adam, WestGen, A-Town, Alex R, Itchy Nutsuru, Andre, Andy Hudson, Dave Thompson, Andrew Wright, Benjamin Atkins, It's the Bigfoot, Zamatos, Brandon DeZeba, Michael Barjudina, It's OG, Hagel Waffle, Brandon Helmhackle, Dan Fusselman, Dan of DNA Gaming, Biddy, Captain N, Nerdy Hybrid, Bobby Litton, General Fury, High Plains Drifter, Elijah Burns, Brian Weber, Bula, Burt Macklin, Hitchy Poo, Cody Thompson, Adam Blank still has reviewed Mario Galaxy, Poop Q, Chris Fleury, Chris Dickin, Triple, Makeshift Mallow Magic Money, Christian Gabriel, No Games, No Beer Makes Greg, CJ something something, Drunk to Bed, okay. James Clark, Scissor Fist, Cody Richardson, Colin Bollinger, The Fletchman, Neil Cooper, Robbie Ayer, Cesar. I don't know how to say that one. Fallen Snow Kiku, Daniel, Chris Williams, Dave McGee, Oh My God, It Froze, Dakota Guy, Digital Dave, Decoy Man, Dill Pickle Rick, Doug Dorn, Dem Boys on the Roof, current Remember the Game Hall of Famer Mark McHugh, Ryan Maurice, Joe the Sandman, Dr. Nightmare 23, Daniel DeVore, Ballsack, Teabagger, Eric James, Agent Booty Pants, E-Man Trucker, Raging Irish, Shorzy, Super Dad Bros Podcast, Fraser Burns, IC Wiener, Graham Kennedy, Graham, G9PSX, Maverick Marty, Jameer Williams, Lucas Valadez, Heman Demon, Fade and Sufferance, Holmes, Liquor Like Luigi, Phil Lencher, Ragatucci, Isaias, Evolva, Jacob Adams, James Juan Francesco, Jameer Pram, Sharonic, Max Lagroom, John of the Adult Children Podcast, Wildcard, Jake Carter, Jake Callahan, John M. Watkins, Joel LeBlanc, Beaver Boy, Laces Out Dan, Johnny CCDC, Oroku Saki's Gardner, Chugger 22, pardon me. Jordan, Jeff Bergeron, Robothon, Dick Whittles, Stud Still Smash, No One Cares, Fill Up My Mouth with Farts, Sleeper Hit, Alexander Camps, Devilish Saint, The Keegs, Kevin Monroe, Ryan Kinchin, Postman, Chris Lovin, K-Hatch, Aaron Lawson, Gabe, Bud Lightyear, Mark Sneed, Leroy Westrich, Angry Ticks, Matt Hamilton, Beef Dingleberry, Mellow Yellow 8787, Bulma Simp, Tristan Anderson, Mark Bonamacue, Zonko 504, Morgan, Mr. Papa Giorgio, DB Cooper, Pickin' France, Esteban Navarro, Naf E, Nathan Tremblay, Brian Neese, Cam Nelly 23, Nick Creature, Nicola, Musty Beetle, B Money, Elephant Calves, Donnie the Dude Walter, Stephen Parnell, Frosty Bear, Denzalo, Ryan Perry, Preston Dylan Tourette, Plow King, Russell Aldridge, Alex Ramos, Sean Ramos, Randy Barrage, Big Daddy Randall, Nick Amos, Titan 420, Brian Richmond, Slick Rick, Knife Goes In, Guts Come Out, Blobby Rogers, Wyatt the Surgeon Who's Not a Surgeon Rowe, Ray San Wantonga, Ruben Elizalde, Squeaknut, Sabin, Mercury 869. I had to stop to swallow my saliva. It was building up. It was gross. Sam Carpenter, Bucky the Beagle Herder, Blaine the Hoagie Man, Scott Brooks, Steve Dalk, Timmy the Exuberant Turtle, DPXJ, Shoeboxers, Jimothy, Sam Wright, Solomon Soto, Sour Goatface, C-Spin, Robbie DLC, Squints, Atreyu Wormwood, Joe Stone, Thomas Childs, Frosty Feet 492, Scary Terry, That One Kid, Josh, Mike Maloney, Glue Scappin, Thomas Smith, Timothy Sabrinsky, Doogie, Fuzzy 99, Quiet Place Queen, Trevor McKee, Hired Goons, Who, Because 19, Tyler Bauer, Wolf Magic 21, Lord Longrod, Von Hugendom II, John Woodruff, Denton Van Zandt, Super Nintendo Chalmers, Works For Me, Wolfgang Darren, Buy Me Bone Storm, Antonio Echeverria, Darth Skywalter, Kia Pup, Mizuru, Joe Buck, Tunable Power, Arctic Vision, Zane Donovan, Zach Shepard, and Matt Zeus. Thank you all so much for the support. You kids are the best. Take it easy. Purple Monkey Dishwasher.